Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
It is 2 o'clock, which means it's time to talk some football, if you guys would like to do so. Pro Football Talk just put out their power rankings about an hour ago. It's a nice little graphic they do on Twitter. They actually have a change at the top. Detroit was number 1. They've dropped down to number 2. Kansas City, who hung on by the hair on their chinny chin chin for the umpteenth time this year. Kansas City is number 1. Ian, would you like to venture a guess at where the Tennessee Titans might rank on the latest edition of the Pro Football Talk power rankings?
I'll go 31.
You're so close.
Oh, is it 32?
32!
Okay.
As the great Ricky Bobby would say, if you ain't first, you're last. So I want to start the show on this because I noticed that the big divisive topic around town, it's not Will Levis. There are not that many people around town that think Will Levis is a good quarterback. I'm telling you that right now. It's not really Brian Callahan. Yes, I think that there are some people out there that think that Brian Callahan is in way over his head. I think there are some people that think that he has no idea how to coach and so on and so forth. But again, I don't think that's the argumentative topic. I think the thing that people in this town, to a certain extent, are torn on is the hierarchy of the organization. We know the owner's not going away. But the GM and the president of football operations, who were hired roughly at the same time, albeit in a different capacity, that have been running this team for 2 years. There's a big argument between people like me that think this is a train wreck, and the sooner this stops, the better we'll all be. And our midday show that we've dubbed the Rand Club, which I think Ian is actually starting to kind of become a part of.
Easy.
So here's what I want to do. I'm going to open the phones today, 615-737-1025. And I have this question when it comes to the defense of Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker. And you know when you sign a contract and it says, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game, Cromwell Media, DBA, for the rest of this contract, hereinforth referred to as Stillman and SNC or whatever. So from now on, whenever we talk about Carthon, we're also talking about Brinker. Whenever we talk about it, it's all together. So it's not just one guy, but it's everybody. Give me a reason. Other than this, they haven't had enough time. That is the one thing I keep hearing. Rand hasn't had enough time, Jared. But again, that's not a good thing. Like, that's not like, well, they've shown improvement. It just hasn't been the improvement that we've liked. No. That's just, well, it's only been a couple of years, and let's make us all waste 6 more years of our lives because it hadn't had a fair shot. So give me some positives. Why Ran Carthon and, hereinforth, Chad Brinker should keep their jobs running this football team right into the ground. The good news is, according to those Pro Football Talk power rankings, they can't go further than 32nd. But what good has this group done in 2 years? And I don't mean the whole, Azeez Al-Shaair was a good signing last year, because there are some positives, whether it's Azeez or Tony Pollard but again, I'm talking about transformational franchise headed in the right direction while these guys have a clue type decisions. Because this will inevitably turn into, well, Jared, Tavondre Sweat is going to be good. And again, that's not really a thing. It's not a fact that Sweat's going to be good. You think he might be good. As of right now, he doesn't actually produce on the football field. But again, that's okay for some of you. But I'm talking like what Washington can say with, look at Jaden Daniels. Look at what we've built there. Look at the winning we've done. What about that? Number one, this team, this group, this everything, they don't have an identity. And I don't see the pieces adding up to build an identity. Are the Titans a big, tough, physical team? I can't say that. Nobody ever says, hey, when you get ready to play the Titans, you know it's going to be a tough day. But when you had Jack Conklin and Taylor Lewan and you signed Ben Jones and you drafted Derrick Henry and you traded for DeMarco Murray and you knew, boy, it's going to be a big, tough physical day coming to the yard to play the Titans. Can you say the Titans are a light it up and throw it down the field football team? Of course not. Are they a defensive juggernaut? Yep, they have the number one defense, but they're 29th in points allowed. It's hard to believe that the Titans have an identity. I don't even know who's the star of this team. Number two, this group has one young core player to build around, and it's the left tackle. That's it. One young core potential star player to build an entire football team around, and it's the left tackle, who, by the way, gave up 2 sacks on Sunday. Guess what? Rustin Webster drafted a young left tackle too. Should he have kept his job? And before you come at me with Mike Vrabel's okay. Ran Carthon's job title for 2 years has been general manager. Of the 6 potential top 100 picks they've had, they've drafted exactly 1 core piece. Levis? Nope. Spears? He doesn't even start. Sweat? 0 quarterback hits, 0 sacks. And they used this year's 3rd round pick on Will Levis. By this time in John Robinson's tenure, and I'm not saying they should go get Robinson back, but I'm at least talking about somebody who did turn a football team around. By this point in John Robinson's tenure, they had drafted Jack Conklin, Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, Adoree Jackson, and Jayon Brown. And there are some more guys in there that, played roles, but you can't tell me that there's anything that there's a Derrick Henry on this team. So again, 1 young core piece. Number 3, they spent $230 million in free agency this offseason, and they didn't get any better. Again, whether or not they spent it correctly, that's a different discussion. Whether they did the best they could, Jared, again, different discussion. But the binary reality, the objective fact is they spent $230 million in free agency. Last year, they were 27th in points scored at 17.9 points a game. Right now, they are 27th at 17.4 points per game. They were 16th in points allowed. Now they are 29th. Special teams, which was a complete and total disaster last season, might actually be worse this year. So you spent all that money, $230 million, and this is what you got? The Titans could have spent half of that and not charged PSLs for the new stadium, and they'd be getting the same results. You'd be in last place. So other than it's not fair, as far as a defense of Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker, which I'd like to point out, call Mike Mularkey, the NFL's not fair. What has Ran Carthon done to earn another opportunity running this football team? I'm serious. You guys tell me what it is you see on the football field, you guys see on Sunday, you guys see that says, you know what? These guys are doing a good job. I hear Chris Sanders talk on one Sunday about how they're building a culture. Then I hear Chris Sanders talk on the next Sunday about, maybe L'Jarius Sneed is milking his quad injury. Doesn't sound like a great culture to me. I mean, I'm sorry. GMs can only ask for so much when it comes to running a team. Ran Carthon has gotten to A, draft his quarterback, B, pick his coach, C, spend in free agency, and D, has made 2 high first-round picks. And all they do is get worse and worse. So I don't know about you guys, but I think time is finite. And I don't feel like wasting another year of my life covering a terrible Tennessee Titan team. You know, we used to be on the radio when the Titans won games, and that was a lot more fun. I don't want to spend another year of my life being depressed, knowing that not only when I watch my team, I'm going to be completely disappointed, but I even get depressed watching other teams' games. I mean, I watch some of these games. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Danico Autry's doing what? Sam Akawanu? Khalif Raymond? Malik Willis? Derrick Henry? I watch other teams and I'm like, wait a minute, the Chargers, they were worse than the Titans last year. So I don't want to waste another year of my life with terrible football because we all don't want to feel guilty for firing a general manager who has truly done nothing right from day one. And I'm not interested. I wasn't interested in wasting this year, but this year's gone. I am not interested in wasting another year. But I would like to say that I have an open mind. So with that open mind, I'm going to open the phone, 615-737-1025 and the texts. And you guys tell me, outside of winning the 2024 offseason trophy of the year presented by their own fan base, what has Ran Carthon done tangibly that would warrant more of this? And we'll do that next. 615-737-1025. There's a one thing. You know, Robbie and Joe, God bless them. I love them. Salute. But Robbie and Joe, they talk around Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker more than just, you know, should you fire him? Should you not? There's one thing they keep saying. And I got to tell you, absolutely, positively, nobody cares about something that you all think people will care about when it comes to this. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
I had no illusions that this was going to be some great season. So let's see it play out. I think a lot of people still think that way, but also I mean, look, then you have the one end of the spectrum is like Stilly, right? I mean, he represents like fire. I mean, I heard him yesterday. It's like he's like, would Rand not be fired in season? Like he can't even wait until the end of the season anymore to fire
have we
Rand.
gone there now? Okay.
Yeah. Well, with the comparison of, and it's a flawed, there's a lot of flaws with like, well, if you did this with John Robinson, then how could you not do this with Rand Carthon? Well, the reason is because you did make all those changes. And so you said, this is what we're doing now. And I mean, it's at some point you probably realize that people are screaming at you for being ridiculous and changing your mind all the time, right? And that would be one reason why it wouldn't happen.
That was Joe Rexroad this morning on Robbie and Rexroad. I'd like to kind of defend myself, but I don't even feel like I need to. All I was saying yesterday was when they fired John Robinson, I was like, there's got to be some kind of conspiracy here. There's got to be something, right? Like him and Vrabel came to blows. He was, squawking with the secretary too much. He, stole tickets and sold them. You got to be something. No, Jared, he just wasn't doing well. And Amy had put her foot down. I say, you've got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. They fired the general manager in the middle of the season at 7-5 in first place the week of the Jacksonville game on a Tuesday, sent the coach up there to answer for it because she was mad, even though there's nothing the GM can do between now and the end of the season. Well, holy crap. If that's your logic then, why is your logic now any different? That's the only point I was making. If I owned this team, I wouldn't be firing Rand Carthon in the middle of the season. I would sure as hell be firing him at the end of it. That I can tell you. But again, Robbie and Joe, they talk around the Rand Carthon discussion. They don't step in it and put their flag down and say he should stay, he should go. I got to give Willie and Derek credit on the midday show, the Rand Club, because they have put their flag down. They think he should stay. I think they're wrong, but that's how they feel. But that last part there that Joe just brought up is the only possible reason that Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker might have jobs with the Tennessee Titans at the end of this season. This idea that, well, we told everybody, this was our plan, and if we pull the plug on this, we'll look so stupid. We'll be a laughing stock around the league, Jared, if we fire Rand Carthon. Let me just say this. Nobody cares about the Tennessee Titans around the league. And you know it, I know it. Look at the broadcasters that we get calling these games for the Titans. I mean, the only time we got a decent crew this year was Ian Eagle and Charles Davis, and that was because you were playing the Jets, not because of you. I mean, every broadcast crew you get, it's the bottom of the barrel. I mean, I'm shocked that Beth Mowens hasn't rented an apartment out here because she could be calling so many games the rest of the year whenever they decide to put the Titans back on CBS. You're already the laughing stock of the league. But again, nobody cares about the Tennessee Titans. I can promise you, if on Black Monday, the Titans were to fire Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker, and again, decide what you want to do with Brian Callahan. I'll let the next guy decide that. He'll probably want to fire him, and then I'll have to fire him, and I'm not going to shed a tear about that. But maybe the next guy I want to keep Callahan. I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Again, to me, Callahan's not the problem, but it doesn't mean that solving the problem involves him. But if on Black Monday, if the Titans fired Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker, do you think that would be a huge story across the country when on probably the same day the Dallas Cowboys will be firing Mike McCarthy? Probably not. A quarter of the teams in the league fire their coach in any given season. And I can promise you, if 8 teams, including you, change their operation, there will be 7 bigger stories out there than what goes on with the Tennessee Titans. So nobody's going to laugh at you when you win 4 games this year and you win 11 games over 2 years and fire the GM. No one is going to sit there and say, well, I mean, those guys look stupid. No, you look stupid now. You suck. You're worse than the Panthers. People will understand why you fired the general manager. I mean, again, The let's laugh at you being stupid and doing something that doesn't make any sense, those moments have already happened. When you fired a coach after he won a playoff game, when you fired your general manager while you were in first place, and true league people looked at that and said, what? They did what? Remember we played a cut from Pat Kerwin, who was like, I don't understand what they're, I mean, what are they doing? And the real story that people laughed at you about, the real deal, the real story that people, again, looked at you and said, you did what? That was last year when you fired Mike Vrabel. And again, I'm not saying you should have fired Mike Vrabel, but that was last year. There's no, Rand Carthon ain't coach of the year. Vrabel was. So, let's stop pretending that firing Carthon and Brinker after winning 11 games in 2 years and drafting a terrible guard with the 11th overall pick would all of a sudden be some sort of blemish on the resume that people just could not get over. Oh my God, can you believe they did that? Let's stop pretending that would make Amy look bad, because it won't make her any different. It won't make it look any different. It won't make her look any different than she already looks now. But I keep hearing Joe say that. I keep hearing Joe's like, she would look so bad if she looks bad now. What are we talking about? And yesterday, and Ian can back this up, Joe was very in tune with the Stillman & Company program, because Ian, he fired off some text messages yesterday during the show.
Yeah, he sent a couple. Yeah.
And they were long text messages. And I just replied back and said, hey, Joe, do you think Rand Carthon should be fired at the end of the year? I'll hang up and listen. Because, again, he never addresses it head on. I do think he should be fired. Derek and Willie don't. Chase thinks he should be fired. Again, that's kind of the question around town. We ran a poll. Who should the Titans fire for this season? And the options were everybody, nobody, the GM, not the coach, or the coach, not the GM. 39% said everybody. 29% said nobody. 25% said GM, not the coach. And 7% said the coach, not the GM. By my total, that's 64% of the people that say Rand should go, and 46% of the people think that Brian Callahan should go. So keep that in mind. 615-737-1025. At the start of the show, I asked one very, very simple question. I said, give me a defense. Give me tell me something they've done. Not they haven't had enough time, or not some minor transaction like trading a 7th-round pick for Nick Folk, but give me something, big, foundational that really, is putting this team in the right direction.
That was a good move, the kicker move. And you hated it at the time.
Well, I said he didn't have a very strong leg, and then he missed from 49 last week. So
that's one. It was not short.
And he would have made that if it were 48. That 1 yard right there was and by the way, did you see that kick that kid hit yesterday in the Monday night game? Before halftime?
No, I guess I missed it.
This rookie kicker just comes out and he drills it from 55 like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And apparently they said on the TV broadcast, 50 plus this year is 70% kicking. Remember Floyd used to tell us that anything over 50 was 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's 70-30. And I tweeted out last night, somebody's going to hit an 80-yard field goal before I die.
80?
80. The legs are getting stronger. The
seems a bit extreme.
Wind is moving faster. The balls are, I don't know what it is. Somebody's going to, we're going to see people consistently hit 60-yard field goals 10 years.
Do they need to move the goalposts in closer? Or skinnier goalposts?
So that they'll fit through more?
No, so it's harder to split the uprights.
I don't know. But they're kicking them from deep now. Ian, who's on? We got about 60 seconds till my call screener works.
Oh, okay. Chris, Titans and Truth is up.
All right, Chris, lead us off today. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chris, go ahead.
All right, Jared, first of all, your love for John Robinson has to die because he had terrible draft picks late in his career. For Rand.
I'm not saying bring him back.
I wouldn't.
I'm not saying that either.
2020 on. But for Rand, yes, I get what you're saying on, some of the things, but I would say foundationally what he has done, he's been willing to take more risks. despite what you might feel with Skoronski, I think from Cushenberry to the left side of the offensive line, you at least have a starting piece there. Right side is still a big question. Quarterback is still a big question, which I think they may have a chance to see about a new quarterback. Defensively, although I did not like them trading Ernest Jones away because I think Jones and Murray together were actually pretty decent on that defensive line. And I understand what you're saying with Devondre Sweat. I know he's a big nose tackle. And I know you probably would have said, don't take a nose tackle at 38, although he's pretty good. He should get to the court. Maybe he should get to the quarterback once or twice, but his job is mainly to make sure Big Jeff, Landry, they should be getting to the quarterback a little bit more. I mean, in theory, he is actually doing his job as a big 340-pound nose tackle.
No, he's not.
I mean, Gilbert
No, he's
Brown
not.
for the Packers was great.
No.
Much.
Chris, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to tell you that because I've done the numbers. Simmons got to the quarterback more last year than he did this year.
That's true. And that's what I'm saying. Both him and Landry should be getting to the quarterback a lot more. They should. So really, Sweat is supposed to be setting up those one-on-one matchups for them where they should have more of an advantageous position. But I think at least on the left side of the offensive line, I think Rams has started to build something there. They at least have that. Now they do, again, need to figure out the right side. Will, he's not the guy. We need to see what the next quarterback could do. And
so, Chris, let me sum this up for you. You're saying that they should get another year because while they haven't done anything on the right side of the offensive line, they haven't fixed receiver, they haven't fixed quarterback, they don't have a tight end, special teams are a disaster, defense isn't very good, but they did figure out the left side of the offensive line, so give them a third year?
And Ridley is slowly starting to come into form. Yeah, he had a rocky start in the beginning, but it looks like he's slowly starting to come into form, a bit. So I think that's something that is a positive on that note. Now, yes, I hated they traded DeAndre Hopkins away, but I think it was necessary. It was a necessary loss. So
you want to give him a third year, Chris?
Yes, at least one. Now, if they suck up next year, I get it. Both should go because you said it before, because, again, it's like a building. We need to at least have some type of solid foundation. If we don't have a solid foundation, the building is never going to get built. So I think they at least get one more year. Now, if they don't, okay, clean it up. Everybody goes. And
Chris,
I would understand it.
I appreciate your call. And I hear what you're saying. I just think it's ridiculous to say, well, hey, they've got the left side of the line figured out, so they're doing a good job in 2 years. So then over the next 2 years, they'll get the right side of the line figured out. And then in 2 more years, they'll get pass catcher figured out. And then maybe they'll get defense figured out.
Well, the 2 years thing doesn't work when you change coaches. It's different. Why? Because it's a whole new database of players.
They got promoted.
Yeah, but they're picking players. Got promoted. They're picking players for Callahan compared to picking players for Vrabel. That's 2 different things. You're shopping for 2 different recipes.
I just don't agree with that. I mean, again, there are teams that get new coaches, and they actually take the players that were on the team before and win with them.
Okay, well,
I don't see why you're not allowed to do that here.
That's on the coach. That's not on the GM.
What do you mean?
Well,
my point is there were no good players for Vrabel, and there are no good players for Callahan because they're drafting guards and DTs.
Well, I mean, there were some good players and they were here for 1 year with Vrabel. So they didn't have a lot of good players because there were no good players left on the team.
Or because they picked bad ones like Skoronski.
He's a rookie.
No, he's not.
Last year he was a rookie. Player,
and he still stinks. Again, I mean, you guys keep making excuses. It's fine. I'll give Chris credit. At least he had something tangible that he says he feels good about what this administration's done. I'd argue it's not enough. But that's just me. More your phone, 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, Stillman & Company, 1025 again.
What does Amy Adams Strunk want Titans fans to know at this time?
I have high expectations, and I'll never apologize for that. And these fans deserve a great team, and they deserve a championship brought to the city. And that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm prepared to make the hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner. This team has a bright future. We have Rand. We have a promising young quarterback. I mean, the sky's the limit. We've got cap space. We've got a great draft position. Things are bright for the Titans. I'm really very, very optimistic. And I'd like to thank the fans for hanging with us this year. Our season was unacceptable, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there sooner rather than later.
Sooner rather than later, Amy said at the end of last year. And could you imagine right now if she sat down with Mike Keith and she said, let's say that she decided that it's so bad right now, she's got to talk. And Mike Keith says, what can you tell Titan fans? And she says, well, we got Rand. We got a promising young quarterback. We got cap space. We got a great draft position. We're going to be there sooner rather than later. She'd get laughed out of the city if she said that right now. That's where we sit when it comes to the Titans. But hey, Titans of Truth, Chris called in and he said that they fixed the left side of the offensive line. And again, Skoronski's like not even that good. I mean, I would even say he's good. He can't pass protect. He's a big old fat-footed run-blocking left guard. And J.C. Latham looks the part of the 7th overall pick at left tackle, and I am pleased with what I see. He gave up 2 sacks on Sunday. And Cushenberry has a torn Achilles. But other than that, nothing else has been good, but that's enough to keep his job, according to Chris, which, again, I asked for you to tell me what they've done, and at least he's done that. Kinston has been waiting patiently and is up next on our program. Kinston, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Jared? I've been rocking with you, man, since 2019, and there's been a lot that I disagree with, but over the last 2 months of the season, I agree with everything you say. And I'm glad you played that clip of Amy because I was going to cite that. Because when she fired the last GM and the previous coach, her reasoning was because she wants to get us to the Super Bowl. And I think she even said when she hired Rand and Cali that their previous Super Bowl experience with their previous ball clubs has been kind of the reasoning behind those choices. But as you said, ever since they've been here, everything has literally been a downgrade. There's nothing that you can point to say that they made better. And the grass ain't always greener. People made excuses for Rand that first year when they talked about he had limited money when he brought in Dillard, and then we got Skoronski, and they said, well, give him this offseason. He spent $200 million, and as you said numerous times, the team has gotten worse. So if her logic was to bring these guys in to get us to a Super Bowl, but they're doing worse than the guys who had skins on the wall, again, a 600 winning percentage for the GM, and a guy that was the coach of the year, it's going to be a new coach again this year. It's, again, a testament to the grass ain't always greener. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, and she's going to have egg on her face. I'll put it to you like this, and I'll let you go. There's nobody that can look at this unbiasedly and say that that GM hire and that coach hire to this point has been any good. The offense is worse than Tim Kelly's, and this is the reason the guy brought in here. And your quarterback has regressed. So, I mean,
Kinston,
Cam Ward.
Yep.
Go ahead, buddy.
Kinston, I appreciate your call, and I think you're spot on. Again, and let me say this. Somebody said in the YouTube chat, Jared wants Rand fired so bad. You're right, I do. Because I'm tired of the bull crap, and I am tired of losing. I mean, I'm depressed to watch other games because I see other teams, and I'm like, oh, God, I wish I was pick a random middling team. I wish I were the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Like that's how I feel watching other games. I'm tired of it. I want to be good. And let me say this. Kinston, 6 months ago, did not want to make that phone call that he just made because he was rolling the other way. He listened to the show. He didn't like what he heard because he didn't agree with it because he thought, hey, let's see what happens. He's seen what happens. We're on the same page now because, again, I think he's tired on Sundays of being embarrassed by his football team. And I talked about the cycle. We'll get to the cycle. Put the cycle to the side there. But I mean, again, it's like, yes, like I want them fired. I want new people in here that know football. Let's roll through some texts at 615-737-1025 because we haven't hit a text yet in the text line. We got a lot of them. 615-737-1025. We continue on Stillman and company. And you know what? I see the cycle. I see the cycle. Every week, I see the cycle. And it just keeps on coming on. We'll get to that next. Stillman and company on 1025 again. Okay, your thoughts on Vrabel?
I was shocked. I mean, that, and they bring in Brian, Callahan from the Bengals, who didn't even call his plays there with Zach Taylor. I thought that was a horrific decision by the ownership of Nashville. I made no sense. Now, I know Vrabel didn't get another job, so that makes them look good that he wasn't gobbled up by somebody else.
Sure.
But Vrabel's a hell of a coach. Does a good job. He doesn't really have that well-known quarterback yet. We don't know about Levis. I mean, he looks like he might be good, but you can't. He had the one great game against Miami. You can't swear on that right now. We were all surprised. No, we weren't shocked because we think we maybe saw this coming. They did let A.J. Brown go a couple years ago. Maybe Vrabel wasn't on that page to do that. But, yes, most football people were surprised that Vrabel was let go. And most football people think, not that I talked to them, but this is just me listening, most people think that Vrabel got a raw deal.
That was Mad Dog at the Super Bowl saying, hey, football people, the people that know football, they were like, what? Vrabel? Really? Trust me, nobody's going to be upset if the Titans make a move on Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker. So I decided to just kind of, go right through the text line because we haven't hit any of those. And I was wanting to see, we had one caller that called in that was a positive, hey, they fixed the left side of the line. And so I'm happy with that, which, again, I don't think the left side of the line is fixed. I think it's
promising
better
start
than Dennis Daly and Aaron Brewer. I'll give you that. But, again, we had that. I went through the text line. Unless you want to count Adam in Portland complaining about me, there is not a single positive defense of Chad Brinker or Rand Carthon on the text line. So let's run through some of those. Although I do want to go through the cycle that I promised I'd talk about. So I have noticed there is a weekly cycle that we have when it comes to the Titans in this town. On Sunday, when the Titans are getting their asses kicked by Detroit or Buffalo or the Chargers, or they're losing an embarrassing game to Indianapolis or whatever. It really has been from the Packer game on. Everybody is embarrassed, just thoroughly wanting to put a paper sack over your head, embarrassed on Sunday. On Monday, people are angry. We take your phone calls. People get mad. They yell. They scream. They can't believe it. They demand better. But then Tuesday through Thursday, throughout the course of the week, we start to see excuses start to make their way into the everyday common discussion. And again, right there, when Chris called in and said, well, I know Cushenberry's hurt and I know Skoronski's not that good, but the left side of the line's good. Give him a chance. That starts to happen more and more often. Well, Ridley's starting to come along a little bit, so I think it's a... Then by Friday, people start telling themselves, you know what, I think Titans could beat the Vikings this week. I think the Titans, Brian Callahan said they had a good week of practice. Nick Holt said they're really working on getting it. Denard Wilson said the Titan way. I think they can win on Friday. Then on Saturday, we all watch college football, so we don't pay attention to the Titans. And then on Sunday, by about 2:06, you want to put another paper sack over your head. And that is the weekly Titan cycle. So now we are starting to get into the... I just saw something on the YouTube chat. I'm sorry. Now we are starting to get into the excuse-making portion of the week. One texter says, season ticket holder here. Rand and Brinker got to go. If Callahan ends up getting fired also, then so be it. How can Amy bring everyone back and sell that to the fans? I agree. Unless, again, like I said, Tuesday through Thursday, the excuses start to make their way into people's brains. And it's almost like, Nick Saban talks about rat poison. It's almost like an infection. The team does something you don't like, but then because you want to believe in the team, you let them talk you into it. And I think there is some of that. So if she brings them back, I think she could do a sit down with Mike Keith and say, I just feel like the progress we've made by winning 4 games this year after we won 6 last year just makes me feel like we are so close that there'll be fans who are like, nah, they're so close, Jared. Ball didn't bounce their way. One texter says, unless they don't get someone who knows football, as you have said, you're going to experience the same problem next year and a lot of losses. That's from Larry in Columbia. Let me say this. If they don't get somebody that knows football in here to run this team, then I would have absolutely no problem if you gave up on the Titans and started rooting for another team. I would absolutely, if you decided, hey, the Robbie Stanley, I had enough of Jeff Fisher and I said enough was enough and now I'm a Packer fan. You can do that. If I had to tell you what teams to root for, I would argue the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Packers are probably the three organizations that I have the most respect for. Don't root for Dallas. You'll be just as disappointed. Or you can cheat and root for Kansas City. Justin says, I just don't think there is a defense of Carthon and Brinker's job this far. The only reason to keep them on is strictly on feelings based on the facts say poor job performance. Most of us don't get a third or fourth chance with our jobs because it wouldn't look good or it would make that person feel bad. If we perform poorly, we get fired, period. Well, and not only that, like if you're Amy, and I know Vrabel had a complete stick up his ass and was a total a-hole, and I get it. And like even I said Vrabel should go and they should start over. And I stand by what I thought then, and I would have done the same thing. If you're Amy, do you sit there and think to yourself, man, I fired Mike Vrabel for these dopes? Like there has to be some of that where you're like, oh my God, woo, woo, which is bad. So Adam in Portland's all mad at me. And he says on the text line, Jared Stillman as GM would be a disaster. Way too emotional and reactionary. I think the word is reactive. He's great for shock jock radio where fast takes and big reactions work, but for a GM role that demands long-term vision, not a chance. His focus is too short-term to handle decisions that require looking 3 years down the road. You'll make a great dad. Living in the moment is the most important, I think is the word he's looking for, thing for that. But GM, nope, says Adam in Portland. Number one, I am not applying for the general manager position. Number two, I think I could do a better job than the guys that are doing it now. Because unlike them, I care about right tackle. That's not a, we'll wing it, we'll figure it out. We checked every box. And here we are 8 weeks into the year, funneling through Scarbini after Scarbini off the practice squad at right tackle. That would not happen if I was the general manager. So I do think I'd be better than them. The other thing, too, is I don't understand this idea that, in one job, you have a role. And in this job, I feel like we talk every day about the teams. That's our job. It's a daily report card. We're talking about, is the coach doing a good job? Is the guy doing a good job? Like, do people think that I would just go to the podium every day and host a 4-hour show if I was general manager? Do you think I would take your phone calls every day? Jared, what do you think we need to do at right guard? I'm not going to tell you that if I'm general manager. But again, I'm a talk show host. And I'm not applying to be GM. But I do believe I could be better than the guys that are doing it now. I also don't know how you could be worse. Like, I don't know how you're the worst team in the league now. I mean, this is what it is. Cody says, how in the hell can you sell PSLs to see this freaking team? We have no identity, nothing to look forward to, and now we're going to have a big new stadium to get killed in. Yippee! Berg Nihil was trying to do that very thing on both the podcast and on the Titans All Access show, talking about how great the stadium is going to be because the parking lot for the players is going to be very close to the locker room. Yay! But I guess right now that's all you got to go off of. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 here on our program. Now, there is starting to be this, and this isn't the first time I heard this, because I actually heard this from the Russian Propaganda Titans Network after the Chicago game. But there's starting to be something that let's just nip it right now. Let's just stop it right now. This fairy tale in Titans coping land. Remember I told you the excuses they make their way out into the mainstream? Well, there's one here that I mean, it's ridiculous. We'll do it next. I'm going to come on 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So, as I've said, the Titan cycle, Monday, everybody's mad after the embarrassment on Sunday. But then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, excuses start to make their way again. And it's like somebody said something on Twitter, and then all of a sudden it's Tuesday, and now, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but somebody's like, oh, well, I actually heard that, this Marilia. Oh, really? And then people start to repeat it, and then it kind of makes its way into the mainstream. And I'm fine with excuses when they are valid. What I am not okay with is bull crap. And if you've been listening to the show long enough, you know that the number one thing that I am offended by, maybe in the world, is people trying to take advantage of other people by being completely and totally disingenuous. So there's a new excuse that's starting to come out. That is, Rand Carthon didn't draft Will Levis. Period. We're starting to hear that. Why? Because the only hope that this Titans administration could sell onto anybody else is, let us pick our quarterback. We got Brian Callahan in here. He's a guru. Let us pick our quarterback, and we'll go get you Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward or Jalen Milroe. Let's go get our guy, and you will see. But anybody with a brain would object to that. And they would say, excuse me, if you got to draft the last quarterback and Will Levis has been an unmitigated disaster, and the guy that you've hired to make him a good player has actually made him a worse player, why would we trust you to use a first-round draft choice, a high first-round draft choice, on a Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, or Jalen Milroe? Why would we do that? And there's no defensible way to answer that question. So now it's become, Rand Carthon didn't draft Will Levis. Excuse me, where did that come from? It must have come from Planet Delusia, where people just make up crap. Are you delusional? Go to Planet Delusia. Rand Carthon's title the day that Will Levis was drafted by the Tennessee Titans was General Manager. The NFL makes teams hold a pre-draft press conference. You want to know who held the pre-draft press conference for the Titans in 2023 before they drafted Will Levis? Rand Carthon. Rand Carthon agreed to take that general manager position. It was not forced upon him. He agreed to take it in a collaboration with Mike Vrabel. That was the deal. He was not captured. He was not held hostage. He agreed to work with Mike Vrabel. But Mike Vrabel was not the general manager. That was not his title. And according to Diana Rossini's story, after Vrabel got fired, Vrabel wasn't in charge because he asked to be in charge, and that pissed Amy off. Rand Carthon picked Will Levis. And I said that next day. I said Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel's tenures would be tied to the success of Will Levis because that is exactly how this league works. And yes, while there's the example of San Francisco getting lucky by lighting the 3 first-round draft choices on fire for Trey Lance, but getting Brock Purdy, that's how these picks work. You get one crack at quarterback, you drafted him, he stinks, goodbye. That's usually how this works. You take Kyler Murray, he doesn't become a superstar, goodbye Steve Keim, goodbye Cliff Kingsbury, you're out. You take Lamar Jackson, you got a job for life. They took Will Levis. And again, for the people that say, well, Rand Carthon didn't draft Will Levis, this was Rand Carthon the night that Will Levis was drafted.
Will's a diligent worker, extremely smart, extremely bright, puts a lot of the time in, to be a good quarterback. So you appreciate, his ability to pick up concepts and things quickly. And just who he is. He's hardwired. He's tough. And his most recent offensive coordinator, Rich Scangarello, I had experience with in San Francisco, so kind of knew how he operated within that system. And then when we brought him here, our coaches and our scouting staff, we had good interactions with him, so it just, made it easy for us.
Oh, so either everything that he just said there was a complete and total lie, or Ran Carthon was on board with drafting Will Levis when he was the general manager, and they did it. You know who picked up the phone to call Will Levis when they picked him? It was Ran Carthon. And I can promise you this right now. If the opposite had gone down with Will Levis, if he had been this second-year superstar quarterback, Burrow, Manning, Lamar, Mahomes, if this were Carson Wentz's second year, they'd be taking all the credit for it. So again, on planet Delusia, where people are starting to convince themselves that Ran Carthon should be allowed to draft Shedeur Sanders or be allowed to evaluate Cam Ward and Jalen Milroe and Quinn Ewers and anybody. On planet Delusia, you can talk yourself into the fact that, oh, well, he didn't draft Levis. But I live on Earth. So I'm sorry. You picked Will Levis. It's not working. That doesn't make me want to let you go pick the next guy. And I can tell you this right now, because I do think this is worth noting. You can't get too caught up in value when it comes to the quarterback position. I hear this all the time. Well, he had a first-round grade, and we took him in the second round. Yay! But, again, a quarterback's a quarterback. And when you play the game, it doesn't matter if you picked him in the second round or if you picked him with the first overall pick. In the Super Bowl, when Kansas City played San Francisco didn't get bonus points because they took their guy in the seventh round, and Kansas City used 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick to get their guy. So, again, I understand the idea of, hey, this is a value pick because we have Levis ranked as the 17th best player on the board, and he's sitting there at 33, so let's take him. But once you make that pick, he's your quarterback. That's how the league works. So that's why I think a lot of teams didn't draft Will Levis, because even though they probably knew he was good enough to play in the NFL, or, they liked his talent to a certain extent, these guys are sitting there saying, is this the guy worth me getting fired over? Because it doesn't matter if I take him 3 or if I take him 18 or if I take him 24. It doesn't matter. I'm still getting fired if he doesn't work. But that's the league. So I understand maybe, again, a first-year general manager, an owner where he's promising to collaborate with the coach and the draft board on the wall and roll the dice and play the board and all of that, and saying, well, we had him as the 17th best player. He's sitting there at 33, and we do need a quarterback because Tannehill's 35 years old. I understand that. But once you make that pick, once you do that, you are committed, period. And there is no weaseling around that. So let's just nip that little fake bull crap in the bud right now and say, no. On planet Delusia, you can believe that Will Levis wasn't picked by Ran Carthon, but you can't believe that on planet Earth. And this show operates on planet Earth. There may be another show on that's on the same time as us. They probably do live in planet Delusia. Not us. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program if you want to weigh in. And coming up next, this is the real question. Not whether or not Carthon picked Levis, but the real question is, does anybody get a second quarterback when the first one fails? Well, I went and did the research this morning. I was a little surprised by what I came up with. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I had Hiller at my home today. I want to put some outlets on another side of a room in my house. And so Hiller came out, and I was like, I don't even know how you do that. But they do. And it was a very, very easy. Guy came out to my home. He was here for about 30 minutes. He did all the specs, told me how much it was going to cost, showed it all to me with true transparency pricing, gave me a price, and they will be here to do the job in 1 week. And they'll do a great job because they always do a great job. And not only do they always do a great job taking care of my home, and I promise they'll do the same for you, but they are giving away cash for the holidays, and they are celebrating from now until the end of the year with special deals. Hiller wants to make sure every child experiences the joy of Christmas this year, so they're donating $50 in Toys for Tots with every tankless water heater purchase, and giving away a $250 Visa gift card with each unit. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems, or get a $500 Visa gift card with the purchase of any new whole home generator. More details are online at happyhiller.com. And as always, happy you will be, or that service is free. And unfortunately, I can't get free service on this because I was so happy with my service today from Hiller. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. These deals are only available until the end of the year. So schedule today. Proud supporters of the Preds and Vols and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
I think the Titans could differentiate themselves somewhat by being more transparent. I think Brian Callahan has been far more transparent. And that's a refreshing thing about this team. And Rand would be wise to follow his lead, but he tends to misstep when he speaks publicly. I also don't think the personnel question was about the quality of street free agents. That's not what he's asking. We all know that you're not going to go solve this team's problems. I think the question is more about like what you failed to do or what you assembled and what it's doing.
That was PK talking about the hierarchy of the Titans, and I can't say I disagree with that. So, again, we've already dispelled the notion that Ran Carthon was not the general manager when they picked Will Levis, because on planet Earth and not planet Delusia, we know that Ran Carthon was, in fact, the general manager. So I did a little homework assignment this morning. I don't know if people care about this or not. I find this fascinating, so I sat down and did the work. And the question for me is this. Because, again, forget about this. Well, Mike Vrabel said, no. Ran was a GM. Chad was the assistant GM. They picked Will Levis, and that was their quarterback. And they would be reaping the benefits if they had gotten it right. But they got it wrong. So now the question is, do you give them a second crack? And I said to myself in my head, I said, how many times in the NFL, across the league, has a team busted on a quarterback in the first 2 rounds? Because I believe if you take a quarterback in rounds 1 through 2, that our franchise guy, you take a quarterback in round 3 after, well, we're just seeing. Well, Mark Dominic told me when the Titans took Malik, he said if Malik becomes a good backup, that's not a bad pick for the value for what you're getting. I said it when they drafted Malik, and I do not hold Malik against the Titans because I'm like, it's the 86th pick. Like, that's a bustable pick. What I don't like is when you use it on a non-premium position like running back and the guy's still your backup running back. That I got a problem with. But again, like I 3rd round, 4th round, I'm not worried about that. I'm talking 1st and 2nd round. So what I did was I did the math between the years of 2015 and 2021. Ian, I feel like that's fair. 2021, we always say give it 3 years to figure out if a quarterback's any good or not. So,
okay.
I felt like 2015 to 2021. I did the math. There were 27 first or second round quarterbacks that were picked. Winston, Mariota, Goff, Wentz, Paxton Lynch, Christian Hackenberg, Mitch Trubisky, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Deshaun Kaiser, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, may he rest in peace, Drew Lock, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. I guess I left out Jordan Love in here, so I did miss on that one, and Jalen Hurts. But again, and we'll count those as hits, so that doesn't even matter, because my whole thing is you count as a hit if you get a second contract. I feel like that's the most binary, objective way to say hit or miss.
Tua? Just like your boy?
It's technically a hit. Lawrence, Wentz, technically all hits.
Daniel Jones, there you go.
It's a hit. And trust me, when I put hit over Daniel Jones, if you're looking at the stream, you can see where I have a hit over Daniel Jones. That felt dirty to do that. But it is reality. So if you get a second contract, you're a hit. If you don't, you're a miss. Again, just binary, objective. That's how I feel. 15 quarterbacks did not sign second contracts. Winston, Mariota, Lynch, Hackenberg, Kaiser, Mayfield, Darnold, Rosen, Haskins, Locke, Wilson, Lance, Jones, and Fields did not sign second contracts with their original team. Of that group, 6 general managers got to pick their next quarterback. So 6 of 15. So, for instance, Rustin Webster drafted Marcus Mariota. He didn't get to pick the next quarterback. Of that group, Jason Light in Tampa Bay picked Jameis Winston, number 1 overall, for his first draft choice. He got to pick the next quarterback, which was Tom Brady in 2020. I'd say those are pretty extenuating circumstances. They missed on Jameis, but it wasn't a total bust. They were thinking of re-signing him, and then maybe we'll just go get Tom Brady and win the Super Bowl. Number 2, John Elway drafted Paxton Lynch in Denver in 2016 and drafted Drew Lock in 2019. But you'll have to remember, why did Elway get a second crack at it? Elway won a Super Bowl in 2015. So it's not like Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker can look at us and say, hey, guys, I want a Super Bowl for you guys, so let me pick another quarterback. And Sam Darnold, third overall in 2018, and was fired after one season with Sam Darnold as their quarterback, which, by the way, is something that I am scared to death of. You let Rand and Brian Callahan draft Jalen Milroe in the first round. They get fired because you're not going to win games with a rookie quarterback, most likely. They get fired. New guy comes in, and they're like, we don't even like Jalen Milroe, which happens more often than you would think. But the Jets said, let's give Mike McCagnon another chance. They drafted Darnold, and they fired him after a year. Steve Keim in Arizona drafted Josh Rosen, and after 1 year punted for Kyler Murray. Coach Steve Wilkes got the brunt of it, and I actually think Steve Wilkes might be a pretty good coach. Steve Wilkes got the brunt of it, and Steve Keim has since been fired in Arizona. Ryan Pace in Chicago drafted Mitch Trubisky. That didn't work out. He got to draft Justin Fields and was fired 1 year later. Boy, things just look peachy in Chicago right now. And number 6, Kyle Shanahan drafted Trey Lance at number 3 and was saved by Brock Purdy in 2022. And I will tell you that if you ask Shanahan and Lynch to do that again, they probably couldn't. That to me was a holy crap, you got lucky, way to go. So in 2 cases, guys won, or I guess they didn't win the Super Bowl, but San Francisco got to overtime the Super Bowl. 2 guys have won the Super Bowl, having busted on their first quarterback and getting to pick a second one. But in the case of Tampa Bay, they had Tom Brady as an option. I looked over the potentially available quarterbacks for next year. When Kirk Cousins may be the best option, and after that, it might be Russell Wilson, you ain't getting Tom Brady to save the Titans. And the other was Shanahan, who had already been to a Super Bowl, and again, I think hit the freaking jackpot with that Brock Purdy situation the way it worked out. The same way John Robinson hit the jackpot, in my opinion, by trading a 4th-round pick for Tannehill, and Tannehill leading into the AFC title game. It wasn't like he thought Tannehill was a franchise quarterback when he made that trade. All the other guys that got to draft a second quarterback got fired. Period. So why would it be any different here? Well, let them take Cam Ward and see what happens. You think that's going to be different than when the Bears said, well, let them take Justin Fields. And so Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace did. And then they got fired a year later. So now Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles inherit Justin Fields. And then after 2 years, that doesn't work. So they'll let them pick Caleb Williams. And guess what's going to happen to those 2 guys? And the cycle in Chicago continues again and again. And it should be noted, right now, as much as you guys talk about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, and maybe they're great. People said the 17 class wasn't very good, and Mahomes and Watson ended up being okay. This draft class does not look good when it comes to quarterbacks. Dane Brugler put out his top 50 today. Cam Ward is 16th. Shedeur is, I believe, 22nd, and Jalen Milroe's 22nd, Shedeur's 23rd. Mel Kiper in his kind of breakdown had Shedeur 11 and Cam Ward 12. This ain't Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert that we're talking about here. At least not as prospects. So again, when you let a general manager bust on a quarterback and then pick another one, there's Jason Light, who got Tom Brady, and you ain't getting Tom Brady. And there's Kyle Shanahan, who had already been to a Super Bowl and pulled a rabbit out of his ass. What makes you think that Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan are going to be able to have the same success pulling a rabbit out of their tushy that Kyle Shanahan did? So oftentimes it doesn't end up very well for those teams. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phone, 615-737-1025. And using somebody else's stupidity, I want to highlight what I think may be a problem that a lot of you are going to talk yourselves into. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
This is an organizational catastrophe with a capital C. All right. The city of Chicago, the Bears, they have that big C on their helmet. Yeah. They should change it to catastrophe. The degree to which they have mishandled this situation is now embarrassing. You make apps, you decide Shane Waldron is the guy. When the season ends last year, We have the most important thing we're going to do in the foreseeable future is develop this quarterback. They chose, to your point, Dan, they gave Caleb Williams their playbook in February, right, at the Combine.
Yes.
There was never a question who they were going to take.
All in.
They've known since well before the draft itself, who their quarterback was going to be. The overwhelming priority of this franchise, of this organization, of this business was to develop this young man who clearly has gifts that almost no other quarterback we've ever seen has. It was to develop him. And they chose a person to do that. Why were they so limited in their options? At least in part because they kept a lame duck head coach. So none of the young, hotshot offensive coordinators who had a lot of options were interested in going there because they all knew we're 1 year away from getting fired anyway. The head coach actually had to come out yesterday and announce they're not benching the quarterback.
Well, you got to ask.
That's like saying we're not folding the franchise, right? This is it. This is another step in what is an organization that cannot get out of its own way.
Well said, Greeny, this morning on ESPN. The Bears are an utter catastrophe. You lost to the Bears, by the way. I just want you all to know that. So today, the Bears came out and fired Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator. And I saw this and I thought, oh my God, you want to talk about stupid team 101? The Chicago effing Bears are stupid team 101. And I'm going to tell you exactly how. And I want everybody to understand this because the Titans might end up doing the same thing. The Bears let a 7-10 season convince them that they were on their way. 7-10. 7 wins for the season. And they thought they were on their way. And because they pulled off a good trade with Carolina the year before, they were going to get this generational talent, Caleb Williams. And I sat there on Sirius XM in December of last year. And I said, why are they keeping this guy? Matt Eberflus, the head coach. I said, he's a defensive coach. Why are they keeping a defensive coach who is on the hot seat and drafting their next, what you expect to be generational quarterback? And the amount of phone calls that I took on Sirius XM, oh, Jared, you don't understand. In fact, one guy called in and said that there was no shot Matt Eberflus was on the hot seat and that they weren't worried about having a good offensive coordinator. Because my thing with a young quarterback is if you have a defensive coach with a young quarterback and the offensive coordinator isn't some 50-year-old that's 800 pounds like Charlie Weiss, you're going to lose them. Like, you're going to lose. You have a good year, Arthur Smith is going to be a head coach. So, again, I'm sitting here thinking you need an offensive head coach so that Caleb has the same guy over and over and over and over again, and you don't end up disrupting that. Kind of like Mahomes and Andy Reid. Josh Allen regressed when Brian Daboll left, and they hired Ken Dorsey. They had to fire him. They brought in Joe Brady, and it looks like it might be working out. But again, when you have a defensive head coach, you're going to lose the guy if the guy isn't good. And this caller on Sirius said that Shane Waldron was the best offensive coordinator in the league. Oh, no. Oh, no. So, again, I kept saying, why would you take this defensive coach who's on the hot seat and let him draft your next quarterback? Jared, you don't understand. No, I understand this league. If you're drafting Caleb Williams and your coach isn't Bill Belichick coming off of 6 Super Bowls, you go get a good coach, a new coach, an offensive coach. Why? Because that coach needs to be able to lose with a rookie quarterback. The same way Peyton Manning went 3-13 as a rookie, or Joe Burrow went 2-7-1 as a rookie. You need to have a coach that can lose with that rookie quarterback while they show signs of progress. When you have a hot seat coach, you get this. Hiring an OC who stinks because all the good offensive coordinators, like Greeny said, all the good offensive coordinators are like, why would we go there? We're going to get fired. Meanwhile, Cliff Kingsbury has gone to Washington, and he's going to be a head coach probably next year. for this exact reason. In fact, he might be the head coach in Chicago next year, which takes me back to the Titans. A lot of people say, well, let's let Rand and Brian Callahan draft a quarterback this year, and then let's see. Even the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat, who is the biggest Rand homer that ever existed. In fact, if the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat was Rand Carthon and it was a burner, I wouldn't even be shocked. I would not be shocked at this point. Even he says, if Rand doesn't get it together next year, then he's got to go. So what you're going to do, because the Titans are going to be picking second, third, fourth, is you're going to let Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan, who are on the hot seat, you're going to let them draft a quarterback. Well, what's going to happen when that young quarterback doesn't pop immediately? And before we get too caught up in popping immediately, let's remember, Carson Wentz popped immediately. RG3 popped immediately. We lived through Vince Young, who was Rookie of the Year and went to the Pro Bowl his first year in the league. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you win right away with a young quarterback, with a rookie quarterback, but it does if you're on the hot seat. So all you're doing is you're setting yourself up to, okay, we're going to draft Shedeur Sanders. And now in year one, Brian Callahan's on the hot seat, Rand Carthon's on the hot seat, and Shedeur, again, I don't know where you're getting a right tackle from because you're using your first pick on your quarterback. So within year one, you go 6-11. They're all fired. Fans are not sitting through that again, not moving into a new stadium, you're getting a new coach. So now Shedeur Sanders has to learn another offense, new terminology, new coaches, new receivers, because this GM's not going to like some of the guys that are on this team. And then you become the Bears. Washington completely cleaned house. Coach isn't on the hot seat. GM's not fearful for his job. And they're able to build. New England cleaned house. Goodbye, Bill. Gerard Mayo is not on the hot seat. And what have they been able to do? They were able to play Jacoby Brissett for the first quarter of the season and let Drake May sit on the bench. They were able to have a game 2 Sundays ago against the Titans. I don't know if you guys felt this way or not, but I watched that game and the Titans ended up winning and Drake May threw 2 interceptions. But I was impressed by Drake May's game when they came in here. And it's okay. Hey, Drake May, you did some incredible things. Great touchdown on the last play of the game. You ran the ball effectively. I know you threw the 2 interceptions, but that's okay. We'll build on it for next week. You can do that when you're not on the hot seat. But when you live this life where it's like, well, let's let the hot seat guys pick a quarterback, you're screwed. You're screwed when you do that. So I hate to say it, but that's what it looks like. The people that want to keep Brand, your thing is, I want to be the Bears. I want my hot seat coach and my hot seat general manager to pick the next quarterback so that a year later I can bring in new guys who didn't pick them. And then after a year, when it's like it proves that, maybe Jalen Milroe's not that good, the coach and the GM, well, they didn't pick him. Which is why I said at the end of last year, I said I'd fire Vrabel and I'd fire Carthon. I'd start over, I'd bring in an experienced general manager, and I'd let them decide what to do with the quarterback. If Levis is your guy, cool, let's roll with it. If not, we'll pick somebody else. I mean, Michael Penix could be the quarterback. You're the GM, it's your team, but nope. Instead, they decide to run it back, and this is what you get. And if you keep it back for another year, you're just going to be the Bears. You're going to have a hot seat coach and a hot seat general manager pick a quarterback, get fired, and then the next guys are going to inherit it. And then the next quarterbacks have to learn another system and be with a GM who didn't pick him and a coach who didn't pick him and get with players. You see what I'm saying? This isn't how this works. Joey from Bellevue, good man, says, Jared, you're awesome, but I'm so down. We've lost against the Bears, the Jets, and the Colts this season. All 3 of them have been awful with their organizational failures, and look at the changes they've made during the season. And the Titans are worse than all three of them. It hurts being a Titan fan. Ding, 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 ding. I mean, people during the beginning of the year, they were like, oh, but these games are so close. Right, because those teams suck. But when you play the Lions, the Bills, and the Chargers, it's not very close now, is it? That's a problem. Jacob said Charlie Weiss literally left for Notre Dame. Ha ha. Yeah, Charlie Weiss left for Notre Dame because no NFL team wanted to hire him to be head coach, and it was after 3 Super Bowls. I'll never forget, John McClain was asked why nobody was hiring Romeo Crennel and Charlie Weiss. And I don't even know if you can say this, but McClain said at the time, he said, probably because Belichick keeps feeding them too much and people don't want to hire fat head coaches. Said that like 20 years ago. And again, I think it's something. Again, Dave Canales is a head coach in the NFL after 1 year as a coordinator for Baker Mayfield. Like if you hire a defensive coach and draft a young quarterback and your coordinator is in any sort of athletic shape and you win a couple of games, he's getting a head coaching job. It's just reality. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Predators got a point last night. Unfortunately, that might not be good enough. Got a quick Preds thought that we're right back to the Titans. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
What does Amy Adams Strunk want Titans fans to know at this time?
I have high expectations, and I'll never apologize for that. And these fans deserve a great team, and they deserve a championship brought to the city. And that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm prepared to make the hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner. This team has a bright future. We have Rand. We have a promising young quarterback. I mean, the sky's the limit. We've got cap space. We've got a great draft position. Things are bright for the Titans. I'm really very, very optimistic. And I'd like to thank the fans for hanging with us this year. Our season was unacceptable, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there sooner rather than later.
She says they're going to get there. Well, as of right now, Pro Football Talks Power Rankings, number 32. Let's go to your phones. We'll get our Preds thought later. We got loaded phones. Let's get to them. Will, phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Will is up next. I've been waiting very patiently. Go ahead, Will.
So some weeks ago, you had a NFL insider come on, and he was insinuating or basically saying, and he had some receipts, that Levis' pick was Miss Amy's pick. So I'm just curious where that falls into your thinking on whether or not we give Rand and Chad another shot. If that was the case, that would be my question. And I'd also like to say that it seems the NFL has gone down a dark path of throwing these young college kids in right out of the gate. And we have history. You went through it several minutes ago of bust, first year successes, bust the second year and whatnot. I think.
Well, I want to hear your first part of that question, because I think teams. Thank you for your call. I think teams rush these quarterbacks out there before they're ready. Anthony Richardson, I think, is the, kind of the poster child, where Kevin O'Connell's going up to him after the game the other day, saying, "Hey, dude, you are a bad dude. Remember that." Because Kevin O'Connell was probably like, "God, if I had Anthony Richardson, oh my God." And I think the Colts have ruined him. But your first thing, Charles Robinson said on Robbie and Joe that it was an ownership-driven pick, that the coaching staff was not necessarily behind the Levis pick, but it was an ownership-driven pick. Here's what I will say to that. Number one, my guess is if both Vrabel and Rand didn't want to make the pick, they wouldn't have made the pick. But Rand was GM when that pick was made. And I remember when John Curry was the AD at Tennessee, and they had Greg Schiano Sunday and that whole Furcocta coaching search. And Floyd said at that time, when we were doing Jared the GM, he said, if I was AD and I wanted to hire Greg Schiano, I'd tell the president, you have to fire me. So you don't want me to hire who I want to hire? Fire me. If that's what you want. Basically making the point of, if you hired me to be AD, I'm going to be AD. And if not, you can go ahead and fire me and pay me, and then you can go pick who you want to be coach. And I believe that if Rand didn't think that he could tie his name to Will Levis right then and there, then he should have said something. And instead, Rand got up there and lectured the media on don't talk bad about my picks. So, again, I mean, if you want to just say, well, Amy made that pick, so Rand's great, you can, but I'm not buying it. Let's go to Michael, who's up next here on our program. Michael, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I agree with you 100%. I don't think this current administration should be picking the next quarterback. And when you were going through all those first and second round picks earlier, even the one of the only positive examples that you gave, Brock Purdy, just think about the situations he was in. He had McCaffrey, Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, a great offensive line. If we get a top quarterback supposedly out of this draft, what are they even going to be coming into? Obviously, we might be able to upgrade from now to then, but there's no way we'd be able to hit 49er levels of weapons for that quarterback that might come in. I mean, even right now, Calvin Ridley might be the fourth best option on that 49ers team right now, more likely fifth option. But, I mean, we don't have the weapons to support him. We don't have the offensive line. Even if
Michael, I'm going to tell you this right now. I agree with everything you're saying, and I appreciate your call. I'm going to tell you this right now. I looked at the draft board, that Dane Brugler put out today. I think you're better off not taking a quarterback in the first round. I mean, I really think that either you take a game-changing player, Abdul Carter out of Penn State. I have no idea if that guy is electric or not. But if that guy's a superstar pass rusher, fine, take him. But I think you might be better off trading down because you got holes on this team. By my count, your holes for next year, where it sits right now, are I guess I put that on my other little Post-it note thing, but off the top of my head, right guard, right tackle, tight end, outside backer, inside backer. I mean, I guess you can run it back with a Woozy and Snead at corner, but I'm a little worried about their health. Kicker and quarterback. That's a lot of holes. John is up next on our program. John, thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, John?
Hey, how you doing today?
Good.
Hey, well, after listening yesterday to your comparison with John Robinson and Rand Carthon, I'm sure that you can agree that it's a DEI hire, and the only reason that he's still there is because he's black.
I do not believe that. And if you're going to say something like that, I need proof of it.
Put a girl on.
I mean, again, like, I will say this. There was a report last year by Greg Bedard. Now, I like Greg Bedard. But there was a report last year that I believe, and I think the quote was, people in NFL circles, people in NFL circles believe that Rand Carthon was a minority hire. I had Greg Bedard on the show. And I said to Greg Bedard, I said, where are you getting that from? And Greg Bedard's answer, and Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, his answer was something along the lines of, just talking to some the people, some in league that some think that, there's just some.
I don't quite remember his answer on that.
It was such a walk back. It was such a walk back that, like, I was embarrassed, like, for him.
I remember having him on the show. That. Yeah.
And I remember in that moment thinking, like, man, once you ring that bell, once you say something like that, like it was a minority hire, it was a DEI hire. Once you say something like that, you better have freaking proof. Because once you've done that, now what you're saying is that man didn't deserve that job. And I have no idea why Amy picked Rand or didn't pick somebody else. But I am sure as hell not going to say that she did it because it was forced upon her or because I'm not doing that because there's no proof of it. And I don't think it's fair to a man to say something like that unless you've got the proof. So you can call in all you want and you can say, and again, it said in the box, you want to talk about Shedeur Sanders, which meant that he obviously was planning to say that. Ian, it's probably the same guy that called last week and did the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But again, like if you want to call in and say that, you need proof. Because again, they interviewed like 7 people for that job. They interviewed white people for that job. There were other minority candidates that they interviewed that they chose him. And I'll say this about Rand Carthon. I walked away from his first press conference, and when he came on the show that first day, and I thought, you know what, there's some promise. This guy seems like a guy I can get behind. Then I was, kind of seeing how he was doing the job and not doing the job and hearing some of the bull crap that I was hearing. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is not going to be, it's not going to work. 615-737-1025. But that is all performance related. This idea that, you're going to come on and say that, you better have proof if you want to say that. 615-737-1025 on Stillman and Company. And coming up next, Brian Callahan kind of did something yesterday that I think he should have been more aggressive with. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Trevor, in less than 30 minutes. You guys know me. You know, I feel like there's kind of now a pattern with this show, or at least it's a pattern that I know in my head because I do it. On Monday, after a Titans game during the football season, that's Titans Monday. Tuesday is usually a reaction to the reaction, right? So, like, on Monday, we all react to it or whatever, and then, you know, well, the coach said this on Monday, and Tony Kornheiser said this. What do we think of it kind of stuff on Tuesday? The Titans are so bad now, nobody talks about anything that they do, so there's not a whole lot of reaction to the reaction to react to, and it's more just kind of big picture. Lord, please blow up this team at the end of the year. But there was one thing yesterday that I thought about when it came to Brian Callahan, and I'm like, you know, Brian Callahan had an opportunity yesterday, and I think he kind of missed it. So as far as the Charger game is concerned, I said my piece yesterday, I think Will Levis played fine. I think it was probably the best game Levis has played all year. Levis threw the ball down the field, completed one to Calvin Ridley. Levis had 2 touchdowns. It was 127 quarterback rating. Yeah, could he have gotten rid of the ball faster? Sure. Wouldn't have changed the outcome of the game. Could he have, not taken some of the hits he took? Yeah, he could have done that. Do I now all of a sudden think because Levis had the best game he's had all season and, you know, at times looked like he could play quarterback in the NFL, do I all of a sudden think now that's our guy? No. But I do think Levis played okay in the Charger game. I don't think you lost because of Will Levis. I don't think Mason Rudolph goes in there and wins that game. And so for a young quarterback, I mean, for a young quarterback with no right tackle and no starting tight end and his starting center's out for the year against the Chargers defense, that's probably the best he could have done. I read Blake Bedingfield's scouting report at paulkarski.com. He's like, Levis has got to learn. He's got to, instead of stepping up into the sack, he's got to, again, this is how you learn. So I thought he was fine. And Brian Callahan kind of said similar things yesterday. But I listened to Brian Callahan's post-game press conference in which he was asked about Levis and said, you know, I think he did some good things at times. And then I listened to his press conference yesterday, and I thought Brian Callahan, you know, addressed things. You know, he's a nice guy. And I think he addressed things as transparently as he could. But I didn't walk out of that thinking, man, Brian Callahan, he freaking believes in that quarterback. And I listened to him on the podcast yesterday, and it was almost like, again, the Titans podcast is a safe space. Amy Wells and Mike Keith were kind of trying to oop the ball up, or I guess alley the ball up for Brian Callahan so that he could slam it down for the oop, and he still totally didn't take it. Here's an example of the questions and answers that Callahan, again, these are supportive of Levis, but probably not in the way that would have been most effective. Here's what he said on the Titans podcast.
Coach, in your press conference today, you received almost 10 separate questions about Will Levis. What were some of the most important things that you took from his performance against the Chargers?
Yeah, the first things first, no turnovers. We have, I don't know how many games straight we've thrown an interception between him and Mason, but to have no turnovers from the quarterback position was a very positive step in the right direction. I thought Will played it efficient. He completed the ball, but he didn't do. Best way to say this would be he played efficient, but he also was aggressive in some of the throws that he made. And there were some tight window throws. They were accurate. He played with some poise and some calmness to his game. Certainly things we got to correct. You know, I think there's a couple opportunities to get rid of the ball a little sooner on some of those plays, particularly some of the 3rd and long plays that you're just demoralizingly taking a sack on 3rd and 20. And it's like, just give us a chance, put the ball in the fairway and let us see what happens after that. And maybe we get to a point where we can go for it. Or maybe we make a guy miss and get a first down as opposed to holding on to it, trying to wait for something to develop on a long yardage situation. But yeah, I was encouraged. I thought I saw growth. I saw maturity. I saw a lot of the things I was hoping to see from his performance.
That was really positive, right? But it's not the kind of positive that stands out. Mike Keith even said, and boy, talk about putting the ball on the tee. Mike is a pro's pro. Here's what Mike Keith said and Brian Callahan's reaction, again, to Levis's performance Sunday.
Part of this was obviously him getting healthy. 90% of it was him getting healthy. But you hope during that period of time he would watch Mason Rudolph play. He would spend time with Trevor Siemian. He would kind of be able to take a step back and roll back into it in a better frame of mind to do the job the way you want it done. That's what you saw?
Yeah, I saw flashes of that. I think it was his highest quarterback rating. I think maybe second only to one other game last year. He was efficient. We didn't turn the ball over. And one of the things I've said before is that really quarterback play in the NFL for 90% of the time is rather boring. And then there's 10% of the time you got to come alive and you got to make a big throw like you did for the touchdown, or you got to make a tight window throw like you did twice to Nick Westbrook, and you got to make a touchdown throw that's you got to put in the perfect spot like you did to Calvin. Like those are the things you have to see when the circumstances require it. And he also made some really nice plays with his feet, which was good to see as well. So I thought he showed a ton of growth. I was really happy with a lot of the things he did, and ultimately we have to do more of it more often and better to put more points on the board than we did.
I actually agree with pretty much everything Brian Callahan said. And again, those are really positive things about the young quarterback. But I'm not sure that's the narrative. I'm not sure that's what people are talking about at the water cooler. I'm not sure that's what people are taking away from the game. I'm not sure that's... So what could Brian Callahan have done? And I think Brian Callahan should have been more aggressive. Should have really pushed the narrative that Will Levis played better on Sunday than he's played all year. And again, it's not that he actually played a great game or anything like that, but Brian Callahan has to understand the climate that he's dealing with right now. There is a portion of this fan base that wants this coach to be successful so badly that Brian Callahan could say anything and they'd believe it. The people that think that the ball didn't bounce their way, those people. But I think there's also a majority of this fan base that just wants a little hope. And I understand Brian Callahan's a nice guy. He's not Vrabel. Got it. But Brian Callahan should have gone to that podium on Sunday, and he should have made it about Will Levis. And he should have gone to the podium yesterday, and he should have been aggressive about the fact that you guys have been sitting here all year talking about how he's turning the football over, and he threw 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. And you guys have been talking all year about how he and Ridley can't hit a deep ball, and he hits a deep ball on the opening drive of the game for a touchdown. We talked about it. We've got protection issues. We've got injuries. We've got guys coming along. We've traded away DeAndre Hopkins, and all you guys are sitting here saying, well, he didn't get the ball out fast enough. Are you kidding me? This is the best game he's played this year. All I hear about is progress with the quarterback. And if Brian Callahan, a guy who's very mild-mannered, a guy who does not usually get up there and wag his finger at the media, if Brian Callahan had done that, I believe it would have resonated through that locker room. I believe it would have given Levis a pat on the rear end. He had an opportunity to highlight what Levis did well on Sunday and turn this into a he's getting better. And he didn't totally do it. And again, I think this is one of these moments, and I like Brian Callahan. I do. And Brian Callahan may get fired at the end of the year, and we may never see him again. And I'll always think Brian Callahan was a good man, and I always like Brian Callahan, and I like the fact that he, shoots people straight and everything. But this was an opportunity to highlight positives that Levis had in the game on Sunday and really make this narrative about his improvement. Because Levis did improve compared to what we've seen this year. There wasn't a stupid interception that cost him the game. There wasn't some panic ball moment where he looked like a deer in the headlights. There was the deep ball down the field to Calvin Ridley. There was the high quarterback rating. But when you sit down and you have Mike Keith sit there and say, so obviously we wanted him to get healthy, but this opportunity to learn while watching Mason Rudolph, isn't this what you wanted to see? Brian Callahan's like, yeah, this is what we wanted to see. He had a high quarterback rating, and he did this, and he did this, and he did that, and he did this, and he did this, and all of that. What Mike's question is what you should have said. You should have said yesterday, this is what the benefit of him sitting was the last couple of weeks while he healed up. The game's slowing down. He's not turning the ball over. I didn't even look up Pro Football Focus how many times he had a turnover-worthy throw on Sunday. I, again, can't think of it off the top of my head. But the question is, would that have mattered? Would that have mattered? That if Will Levis had heard that his coach got to the podium and he pushed back on the mean media, because a lot of people do like that, would that have been something that, hey, coach has my back? Would that have been something that resonated throughout the locker room of, hey, you know what? This kid, he's actually coming along. Would it have worked with the fan base of, hey, he's coming along? Because now all anybody's talking about is he doesn't get the ball out fast enough, which, again, I'm not sure really makes that much of a difference. But I think it was an opportunity that Callahan had that he didn't necessarily take. And right now, when you're as bad as this team is, and there are as few positives out there, especially around the quarterback, when you get an opportunity, you probably need to take it. 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones on this. Plus, Ian, PK has hit up my personal text line on this.
Oh, goody.
We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
do you think those issues, because there was a play where you booted him out and Josh Wiley was coming open on that deep crosser. He didn't throw the ball there, obviously, but is it not seeing it? Is it believing it? Like, from your perspective, what's the feedback that you get?
Yeah, that one you would like to see the ball go up to Josh in that particular play, and the way that play was set up for. It's sometimes it's easy to see from where we're sitting, and when he's on the field and he's rolling out, and he feels, reaction by the defense, and maybe he felt the corner was in a different position from where he's rolling out to versus what it looks like to us watching it on tape. So there's always usually reasoning behind it, but part of playing quarterback is sometimes you just gotta let it go. If you see it, it's just you can't overthink it. You just have to let it rip, and that would have been one that you'd like to see the ball go to Josh with a chance for probably an explosive play. But again, it's just you don't know what he's seeing at field level and how it feels when he comes out.
So that was yesterday, Brian Callahan, because the narrative has become, even though Will Levis had his best game, had a quarterback rating, I think, of 127, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Again, was he John Elway? No. But he was, in my opinion, by far his best game. And not one person is talking about that. Instead, it's, he got sacked 7 times. He's got to get rid of the ball faster. He's got no right tackle. The 2 crap bums they have playing right tackle are off the practice squad and have already been cut by the Titans this year. He doesn't have a right tackle. And then, well, Mason Rudolph didn't get sacked that much when he was in there. Right. And Mason Rudolph didn't play the Chargers. Mason Rudolph played the Patriots. Mason Rudolph played Detroit, who is 16th in the league in sacks. And Aiden Hutchinson, who broke his leg the week before they played the Titans, has 7.5 of their sacks. If you take Aiden Hutchinson's sacks out of it with Detroit, they're 29th in the league. The Chargers are 4th. By the way, Will Levis didn't get sacked against Indianapolis. And people are so stupid. I mean, after the Indianapolis game, people were literally saying the offensive line improved on Sunday. No, it didn't. The competition got worse. Indianapolis doesn't sack the quarterback. They were without DeForest Buckner. Leatu Latu, I think, was hurt in that game. They got nobody to sack the quarterback. How many sacks are you going to get if Simmons and Landry don't play? But again, everybody thinks that it's the Titans who change week to week. I was talking to my dad about this yesterday. People think the Titans did good things the previous Sunday against New England and then did bad things the following Sunday against the Chargers. That's not the truth. What changed was the quality of opponent. You can play to a certain level. You can play 4 out of 10 against the Patriots and win. You can't play 4 out of 10 and beat the Chargers. Mason Rudolph didn't get sacked. He got sacked against Buffalo when they stuck Nicholas T. Frere, a.k.a. PT, out there at right tackle. But Callahan didn't attack the narrative. So now that is the story. And I think he should have pushed back. Kaharski's mad. Kaharski says, so you want him to falsely pump up a quarterback he knows isn't that good. You guys who ask him not to be himself are a joke. If he did what you were asking, you'd crush him. Either way, you'd be up his ass. False narratives. How about honesty? Kaharski says. Again, a lot of people have texted in and said, if Callahan did what you're suggesting, pushing back on the media, you would have criticized him for it. He can't win with you, Jared. First of all, stop telling me what I would have done. I don't know what I would have done if he had gone up there and said that. Again, everybody acts like you're just saying this so that when they do this, you can say that. Like, you guys give me way more credit than how I actually operate. I mean, I react. But I probably wouldn't have a problem with it because I actually think Levis played okay on Sunday. I don't think the story should be, he didn't get the ball off fast enough. I think it should be, you got nothing but bums at right tackle. You got a rookie left tackle who's not as good as everybody thinks he is right now. You got a second-year left guard who stinks. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that to me, that's the problem. But again, when everybody says, you would have crushed Callahan if he had gone up there and he had pushed back on the media and said, this was Levis's best game, this was this was this, you would have criticized him, Jared. You know what the key to that is? Ian, who do they say I would have criticized if Callahan had gone up there and had said that, hey, this was his highest rated game. He hit a deep ball to Ridley. You guys have wanted him to hit a deep ball to Ridley all year. He hits a deep ball to Ridley. This. The criticism would have been about him. Callahan, not Levis. Where was the criticism yesterday? Levis. Again, this is what having your players' backs is about. Again, we laugh at the Mike Gundy. I'm a man. I'm 40. We laugh about that. And again, I don't know all the details behind what that was. But that was his way of saying, make this about me, not about him. So, again, to me, this was the best game Levis played. I mean, again, I don't know how much growth there was, but there's at least things finally you can point to if you're trying to pretend that there's something there. And he didn't do it. And so he had an opportunity, and I think he didn't take it. And again, would I have criticized him if he had come out and pushed back on the media? I don't know. I mean, I was sick and tired yesterday of listening to everybody talk about he wasn't getting the ball off in time. I put videos up on Twitter. I'm like, how are you supposed to get the ball off when pencil legs at right tackle can't block? Well, he should have seen that. Like, there was one where Poona Ford just split right between Radens and I think it was Watson. Splits right between them and goes right to the quarterback.
I think it might have been OJ or Watson. I can't remember. Maybe.
Well, it was definitely one of the two. I mean, they didn't have anybody else play right tackle, but it was one of those bums. And he cuts right through. Poona Ford goes right through, hits quarterback. And I'm like, so is Will Levis supposed to anticipate that they're just not going to block this guy? What's he supposed to do? I mean, it's just, I'm sorry. Says if he goes all in on Levis and then Levis throws 2 picks next weekend, you'll destroy him for it. Again, I don't know what I'm going to say next week because next week hasn't happened yet. Crazy. I'm saying, hey, you know what? They should pump this quarterback's tires. The guy that they're trying to convince you to get a new stadium for. All right, quickly, let's hit some phones. Let's go to Ryan, who's up next on Callahan's been waiting patiently. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm starting to come to the dark side on Callahan. I mean, it's just we're not disciplined. Jim Harbaugh goes with pretty much the same players and some guys that we cut, and they don't make mistakes. We make the same mistakes every week. And even the announcers on TV question our play calling all the time. Going back to Detroit, 1 yard, 4 plays, never a run. That's all I got.
Yep, thank you, Ryan. Let's go to Trey, who's up next here on the program. Trey, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Good.
Hey, you was talking about earlier about DEI and GMs getting hired and stuff like that.
I was not talking about that. The caller was, but go ahead.
Okay. So I did a little research, and on NFL.com, it says that 30% of the NFL GMs are black. Okay. My question is, how many of those had experience before they actually had that position or gotten that position before, the affirmative action stuff started?
Oh, my God. Thank you, Trey. Again, you can do that research yourself. I have no idea. If we're going to start accusing the Titans of hiring somebody based solely upon race, you have to have proof for me. You can't just say, well, I think it. You can't do that. 615-737-1025. Trevor joins us next on the program. Did he see improvement in Will Levis? Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal of the week is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Enjoy their long-awaited release of their barrel-aged Noel Christmas Ale just in time for the holidays. Get half off a $100 gift card now at thegamenational.com/deals while supplies last. It is 4:30 on a Tuesday, which means it's time for Trevor Mattich. ESPN's Trevor Mattich is presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trev, I want to start on the Titans game Sunday, and I want to start on Will Levis. I actually thought Will Levis played okay on Sunday. Hit a deep ball to Ridley, didn't turn the ball over, nothing, just comically stupid. And yet all I hear, Trev, is he holds on to the ball too long. He holds on to the ball too long. He holds on to the ball too long. And there's no talk about how bad the right tackle is, and that they got a backup center in there, and that the left tackle is learning, and that the left guard can't pass protect, and that the Chargers are fourth in the NFL in sacks with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Bud Dupree, etc. I actually think Levis played okay Sunday. What did you see?
I agree. I think he played his best game of the year, maybe one of his best since he's been a Titan overall. Now, the bar's not that high for that, but you could see improvement. You could see him focusing on the most important thing, the prime directive, don't turn it over. And some of those sacks that he took, 7 sacks for goodness sake, some of those were because he was going to throw the ball into danger and thought better of it, ended up holding the ball too long and moving in the pocket in ways that, weren't that productive. But either way, he didn't let it go into danger. And I think that's important. He doesn't have to complete a ton of passes downfield, but he has to complete some. And that early touchdown to Calvin Ridley was phenomenal. That they talked about that connection because it's been a problem when he's been healthy all season long, that he hasn't been able to connect with Ridley really much of anywhere, much less down the field with any consistency. And so they come out early in the game and they call that play and he nails it. And Ridley pays it off with the touchdown. So I think those things were great. But I think it's also fair to say that he does hold the ball a bit too long. And in avoiding interceptions, in avoiding putting the ball in harm's way, I'd like to see him go to an answer earlier than to hold the ball for too long and then take a sack. And so I'd rather have the sack than the interception. But at the same time, where are the answers? And why isn't he able to find them more quickly? Answers meaning when there's nobody open downfield, where do you go? When there's pressure on the way, where do you go? And is the coaching staff scheming him answers that are easy enough for him to get to quickly? Those are two other things. And one thing that I'll say is that I took a note of this, that, a couple of his sacks, he dropped back to pass and he felt like there was pressure coming around the edge. And so he stepped up in the pocket, but instead of stepping up and then delivering the ball or running, he stepped up, then stepped up farther, then stepped up farther and continued to look downfield. In those cases, what happened was somebody, an offensive lineman blocking a pass rusher, that pass rusher no longer had to go through the offensive lineman to where the quarterback would have been behind the offensive lineman, but rather he just took off to the side and fell off and sacked the quarterback because he stepped up too far in the pocket and held the ball for too long. Now, that's not the offensive lineman's fault, but he might get credited for the sack when that happens. But it happened a couple of times. And when Levis steps up like that, he either needs to let it go, either out of bounds or to an outlet or down the field, whatever, but let it go, or take off running because the clock in his head has to speed up, knowing that the offensive linemen now don't have an angle to block their guys on the edges. They're going to fall off and get him. And so there were some things he did like that were mechanically, technically correct, step up in the pocket. But from an instinctiveness standpoint, they were incorrect because he stepped up and waited too long. So you could see things that he did better, and that's encouraging. And I think we need to evaluate him now on eliminating mistakes and improving incrementally at the positive things. And then other things that he doesn't do well enough are kind of at the back of the line to evaluate him on as long as he continues to improve those.
With those things you're talking about, though, they're forcing you by rushing to the outside. They're forcing you to step up so that they can turn around and sack you. Aren't those the things that are okay mistakes for a young quarterback that we're like, okay, this is what he can learn from? Everybody was telling me when he's rolling the ball on the ground against the Jets that, he'll learn from that. And I'm like, Pee-wee kids know not to do that. Isn't these little things you're talking about, Trev, isn't that the nuance of the experience for a young quarterback to learn from? Or should we just expect him to have that down pat at this point?
Yeah, no, as long as he's improving, that's what matters. You want to see him not make the same big mistake twice, and then you want to see him improve. And just take the kind of plays that you just mentioned, Jared, the play against the Jets where they're down in scoring position and he is under pressure. He ends up being in the grasp. He dives. He's in the air like Superman and tries to throw a lateral, and it ends up being a fumble. And the Jets recover, so there was no chance at any points when they certainly would have had a field goal, if not another chance at a touchdown. So that was terrible, right? So now on the plays that I'm talking about where he would step up in the pocket and then wait too long when he's up there where the offensive linemen on the edges no longer have an angle to block their guys, that's an improvement because he didn't do something ridiculous. He did something now that's a little bit better. He does need to step up in the pocket. But his instinctiveness in managing the pocket needs to improve. However, you've seen him improve in managing the pocket anyway. He's just not as good as he needs to be there, but he's better. And so that's what the coaches need to see. That's what the front office needs to see. Not is he ready to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, but is he fixing mistakes? Is he moving forward? Is he not making the same mistake over and over and over again? And we saw him in this last game against the Chargers eliminate a lot of the mistakes that cost them games early in the season. And I think you have to look at that as a big improvement, especially with the impediments that he has to deal with the offensive line and the way they're protecting him.
Trevor, Bill Callahan, I've lost all faith in. How could he have possibly thought that this right tackle situation, if he's such a guru, how could he have let it get this bad? These two guys they had out there on Sunday, they're terrible. And I feel like it's not popular anymore to talk about the right tackle spot because everybody knows it's a train wreck, but they're awful. And Brunskill goes in at center, and I thought he was fine on Sunday. And I'm trying to figure out why they didn't let Brunskill go out to right tackle or move Radens out to right tackle and put Brunskill out at right guard. And every time it's like, well, but Bill Callahan, I get it. He's got the reputation, but these guys that they're putting out there, whether it's Petit Frere, whether it's Ojukwu or Watson, or they all stink. How could this get that bad? And how much of this is on Bill Callahan?
I think Bill Callahan is part of the solution this year. I think without him, this offensive line would be worse than it is. He can't, any coach, any position coach, can't make you better than you are. What he can do is help to make you as good as you can be. He can help you get closer to your ceiling. It's so difficult to master. Very few offensive linemen are relatively close to their theoretical potential of how effective they could be compared to their level of talent. And so he can maximize what you can do. The problem that he has with those right tackles, the two guys that are rotating in, Ojukwu and Leroy Watson, they could be as good as they could possibly be and still not be much better than they are. Because neither one of them can really drop anchor once they're on the move. In other words, the book on both of those guys is you get their feet moving and then go to a power move and it's over. And then they try to adjust to that speed to power, and then they get all messed up in terms of their balance levels and everything just goes to pot. Sometimes they'll have a good play and I'll be like, okay, well that was pretty good. And then they'll just completely whiff and it'll look like they never played football before in their lives. And this is not to say they're not working hard. I don't want to disparage them as athletes or as men, but I would just say that as I watch them play, I don't know what any coach could do to make those guys better than they are. I think they're already pretty close to being as good as you can expect, because occasionally they will make a nice block, and that's actually a really exciting thing.
Trevor Matich is with us on the program, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, where experience matters. Coming up next, Dane Brugler's top 50 draft prospects are out at The Athletic. Mel Kiper's got his latest big board out. If you think the Titans are getting saved at quarterback, these guys I don't think so. We'll get Trevor's reaction to that. Plus, Diego Pavia suing the NCAA, and the Vols might be the best team in the SEC. We'll do that with Trevor next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Dane Brugler at The Athletic has put out his top 50 draft prospects. Cam Ward, 16, Jalen Milroe, 22, and Shedeur Sanders, 23. And he compares Shedeur Sanders to kind of a poor man's Jordan Love. Mel Kiper's big board last week came out. Shedeur Sanders, 11, Cam Ward, 12. I'm not sure these guys are exactly Jaden Daniels. Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, I think there are Titan fans who believe that the third overall pick, second overall pick, first overall pick will be Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. It will go to the Titans, and that quarterback will save the franchise. Then I see what Brugler writes. I see what Mel Kiper writes. Granted, they weren't all in love with Mahomes either. But then I'm a little concerned by what I'm seeing. When you watch these guys play, do you think that these guys can be Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, the kind of guys that have come into the league and saved some of these terrible franchises?
I thought last year, Jaden Daniels coming out of LSU had the best chance of any of the quarterbacks in that draft of succeeding early and having a successful career overall. And the reason were his traits, and he's doing that really well now with the Commanders, right? He throws the ball with good accuracy. He's got great poise. He can run the ball well enough. He doesn't take big hits, which is important. When he runs the ball, he's very slick and slippery, so it's hard to get a real big hit on him. But it's especially his accuracy with his poise. Because of that, people would think that Cam Ward of Miami would be the next guy that could come in and be the next Jaden Daniels. He's got tremendous poise under pressure. He does try to play hero ball all the time, which is to say he'll try to do too much and end up hurting his team because of it from time to time. But he also is the hero an awful lot. I mean, he's brought them back in miraculous comebacks time and time again. They finally fell short against Georgia Tech, but playing the defense more than Cam Ward. But he's one that could. But I think Shedeur Sanders is the most likely to be this year's Jaden Daniels. He has performed under terrible duress at Colorado. Last year, they set a record in quarterback sacks because their offensive line was so bad. And he still stayed in there and set a passing record for Colorado because he was so accurate, so poised, so good from the pocket and good under pressure, good on the move, all of those things, which the Titans need. I would take Shedeur over Cam for that reason. But you know what? I like Jalen Milroe, the quarterback for Alabama, for the Titans as well. Also because they're building their offensive line, and he's a fantastic runner. He'll slow down the pass rush because they have to make the pass rushers need to be more strict and limited in their pass rush lanes. They can't throw big moves and run huge stunts because they got to make sure they keep Milroe corralled in the pocket. Milroe's already one of the best deep throwers in college football, and he has improved from last year to this year in his intermediate throws. He still needs to improve with his footwork and matching his feet with his upper body and all kinds and timing and things like that, things that he'll be coached to do in the NFL. But coming in as not a good, but a great runner and an outstanding deep ball thrower, that combination, I think, will give him a chance to be successful early as well. Anybody else in this draft, I wouldn't take in the first or second round if I'm the Titans, really. And I would just be someone that they could hope to develop.
Okay, so with that being said, if the Titans are on the clock at 4 and they take Shedeur Sanders, you think he could save the franchise?
I think, well, you know how I feel about quarterbacks taken high, right? Yeah. It's a 50-50 chance and, all that stuff. But if they're going to take a quarterback, he would be the guy I would take. And could he save the franchise? Well, if you're putting that standard on him, he has the best chance of doing it, I think, of any of the quarterbacks coming out in that draft. And so if they're hell-bent on picking a quarterback, he's the one I would take. Although I would also consider some other position players to take instead of a quarterback there, or even trade back a little bit, because they have so many needs and there are going to be some great players available that should be rocks for them for a decade. And they may choose to do that instead of flipping a coin on a quarterback at that spot.
Trevor, speaking of quarterbacks, I watched Carson Beck on Saturday for Georgia. I tweeted out, if the Titans draft him, I will renounce my fandom because I think Carson Beck is terrible. I am stunned at what I saw from Georgia. That's not the same team that played Texas. I walked out of that thinking to myself, is Tennessee the best team in the SEC?
That's a good question. See, I'd say Ole Miss is the best team in the SEC right now. Just
but they lost to
I
UK.
think Jackson. What's that?
They lost to UK, and UK sucks.
Yeah, but they lost by one play there, and and you're right, they did. But I think right now the way they're playing, if I had to pick a team I did not want to play, I want them off of my schedule for the playoffs in the SEC. It would be Ole Miss. The way they're playing, the defense is fantastic. The offense is clicking, and they don't even have Trey Harris. He's been banged up. He's maybe the best receiver in the country. They should get him back. They hope for the playoffs, but from a standpoint of Carson Beck, for goodness sake, he came into the season. A lot of people thought he'd be a first round, even a high first round draft choice based on last season, but he has been miserable under pressure, miserable. And teams have teed off on him because of that. I mean, we talk about the stat, QBR, quarterback rating. 100 is perfect, 50 is average. When Carson Beck, the Georgia quarterback, is not under pressure, his QBR is 83 out of 100. That's good. When he's under pressure, it drops all the way, coming into this last week anyway, dropped all the way from 83 to 5, last in the SEC. And I'm guessing that after that miserable performance against Ole Miss, that it's probably lower than 5. Well, he's also terrible when it comes to QBR and the big drop-off when he's outside the pocket, whether he's under pressure or not. So when he's outside the pocket, his effectiveness drops hugely. When he is in the pocket but under pressure, his production drops ridiculously low. It's only when he's in the pocket with plenty of time to throw that he looks like an NFL quarterback. Well, the problem is in the NFL, they're not going to give him that opportunity as much as he needs in order to be able to help an NFL team win. So that's why I wouldn't draft him at all. I mean, if he's available in the 7th round, sure, I wouldn't take him.
Okay,
undrafted free agent, take a flyer on him.
So we'll talk about a drop there. Trevor Matich with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. So UT and Georgia this week. We saw Georgia look terrible, which is the worst thing, I think, for Tennessee coming into this game. But should Tennessee be able to go on the road to Athens and win?
Sure. Why not? Why not? This Georgia team is not the Georgia team of the last several years at all on either side of the ball. The defense is quite good, but they're not a blistering hot rock that they have been in years past. Offensively, their running game is good, but it's not much better than that. They've had injuries on the offensive line, although some of those have resolved. They've had tons of injuries with the running back position. And, we've talked about the quarterback position. The receiving group is pretty good, but it doesn't scare anybody. And you've got this Tennessee team coming in with the reputation of being a Josh Heupel, throw the ball down the field, super up tempo, throw kind of team, but it's not. This is a play sound defense, run the ball team. They lead the SEC in rushing carries, and so they're running the ball way more than they throw it. And I think they're going to try to establish that run against Georgia. I think they'll have some success, and that's when they have their success throwing the ball over the top. But they have not, especially in the second half of the season, they've not turned their quarterback Nico Iamaleava loose as a passer of first resort. They want him to throw play action passes over the top and let the running game carry the load so he doesn't have to.
Trevor, last one for you. Diego Pavia suing the NCAA to get a year back. I mean, I was talking to an athletic director this weekend. I'm like, I don't even know what the rules are anymore. I don't even know if there are rules anymore. Do we think there's any chance that Pavia actually wins this and comes back at Vanderbilt?
I don't know. He's talking about being in junior college and that costing him a year of eligibility at the FBS level. And, but the NCAA's track record in court is abysmal. I mean, they're worse than the Titans when it comes to winning court cases. So he just may well win this. And if it allows college football players to have more time to be able to play, and if teams want to give them scholarships and let them on the team, I'm all for it.
Trevor Maddox, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, great stuff. We look forward to your breakdowns and the rankings coming out tonight, which we're excited about. Trevor, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, Trevor Maddox, he's the best. Presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Barry Trotz is traveling from the Hall of Fame ceremonies to where the Predators had a tough one last night as they're on the road trip. Assistant General Manager Brian Poyle going to step in and pinch hit for Barry Trotz. And we'll treat it just like we're talking to Barry. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. It is 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. We are normally joined by Predators General Manager Barry Trotz. He is traveling right now with the Hall of Fame ceremonies and the upcoming road trip and everything else. So pinch hitting will be Assistant General Manager Brian Poyle, who joins us now on the program, presented by Pourvu. Pourvu has the most friendly experts throughout the store that welcome your questions and will help you find your perfect selection, expand your tastings, all while valuing your time. Pourvu, Indian Lake Boulevard in Hendersonville, just off Vietnam Veterans Parkway at Exit 7. First of all, Brian, I have to say congratulations to you and congratulations to the entire Poyle family. Yesterday, your dad, David Poyle, going into the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. I was in Toronto last month and stayed right by the Hockey Hall of Fame. It is awesome. And that must have been really, really special for you guys and for the organization, not only to have your dad go in, but Shea Weber as well.
Yes, it was. Jared, thanks for letting me pinch hit today. I appreciate it. No, this weekend was fantastic at the Hall of Fame. Just really incredible time for our whole family. We had all of our Canadian relatives on my dad's side, American relatives on my mom's side there, and it was just a terrific weekend they put on. We had basically festivities for 4 straight days, from getting his ring, getting the blazer, private tour of the Hall of Fame, to the Legends game, to the induction ceremony last night, and all the 7 great inductees, and their speeches were just tremendous. A lot of life lessons there I learned, and just it was special. It was like being a kid all over again, just being able to walk in that Hall of Fame and shake hands with some of the legends of the game and some of the great Predators folks that were there, and Washington Capitals folks that were there to celebrate my dad. It was a tremendous evening.
So, Brian, I want to start with probably how it went for you guys. Probably all great, celebrating, toasting, etc. And then it's like, oh my God, there's a dogfight against Colorado last night. You guys get a point out of it, but you don't get the 2. And I wonder, when you look at a game like last night's game, where there were some opportunities that you had, a big mistake at the end that led to the breakaway that ended the game in overtime, great goaltending from UC Saros. When you guys look at a game like that, considering the hole that you've started in, is there a positive to take away, or is it as simple as you get that close, you got to have the 2 points?
I think it's both. I mean, of course, we wanted 2 points, and I thought we played well enough to win. It was a huge divisional game against a divisional rival who we've had trouble with in the past. I thought there was a lot of bright moments in the game. I think our younger players are improving and getting better. I can see the team chemistry continuing to develop and improve. But you're right, we needed 2 points. We're in a hole, and we need to. That's why this road trip coming up is so important. You've heard Barry Trotz preach about getting the team on the road and bonding and trying to gel here. We've got to get points here for Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Seattle. These are huge games for us.
To that point, I do wonder, is there a talk, about how much this team needs to win in order to make the playoffs, or put yourself in a position to where we can talk about the playoffs again? Because while I was encouraged by the way that they played on Saturday and the way they played last night for the most part, at the same time, all these historical precedents that keep coming out, whether it's a U.S. Thanksgiving stat, or whether it's an 0-5 stat, or whether it's all of these historical precedents are pointing to this team not being a playoff team. And it makes me nervous, because if it was anybody else, I'd say, well, then they're probably not going to be part of the 3% of teams that end up. And yet I do think this team should make the playoffs and is going to find a way to make the playoffs. But is there talk about, okay, we've got to get by, New Year's Day, we've got to win X amount of games? Is there a talk about what this team needs to do to realistically be back in the playoff picture?
Yeah, absolutely not. Right now, we're not talking about the playoffs. I know if Bruno was on here right now, he'd be telling you we've got our lasers pointed on the Edmonton Oilers in the very first shift of that game. I mean, to try to talk about the playoffs right now when we're basically at the start of November, and you're right, we've dug ourselves in a bit of a hole. But no, it's got to be one shift, one game at a time. We can't be focusing on statistics or historical precedents, because none of those things matter. We've got to control our own destiny by falling, scratching, everything we've got to do to come up with points here. And it starts on Thursday against Edmonton.
Brian Poyle with us on the program, presented by Pourvu. Dante Fabro placed on waivers, claimed by Columbus. boy, he was on this team for a while. I do wonder, there were kind of a lot of one-year deals with Fabro down there the stretch. He was out of the lineup over the last couple of years, and then this year more out of the lineup than in the lineup. What was kind of the thought process there between making the move, knowing that you were probably going to lose him with a waiver claim? What went through the organization's decision to do that?
Yeah, good question. I think anytime you're dealing with any players, including one like Dante Fabro, who's a homegrown player of ours, who we've developed over the years, these are not easy decisions, and then they're not taken lightly. I think in Fabro's specific case and the specific timing of it right now, as you just mentioned, he wasn't getting regular playing time. He was a healthy scratch with our group. So we thought what was best for Dante was to give him an opportunity either to get claimed by another team or go down to Milwaukee and play a larger role, get bigger minutes, and kind of hone his craft. And in the meantime, he's now been claimed, and now this gives us another opportunity, gives him a new opportunity in Columbus, and I think it gives us opportunity, just like we saw earlier this year. And currently with Mark Delgado, we have some younger defensemen in Milwaukee who I think are more than deserving of an opportunity for a recall with our group to see what they can do. So the old proverbial one door closes, another one opens, I think is true in this case. But Dante, just to speak on him for just a moment, because he was with us for a long time, an excellent human being, a really good guy in our group. We will miss Dante in our community and on the ice.
To that point, you brought up some guys at Milwaukee who you could see coming up here. Barry didn't shy away last week from talking about perhaps we could see some of those guys that could be up here. What right now at Milwaukee, who is kind of standing out as, hey, they could be knocking on the door pretty quickly here?
Yeah, I mean, if any of our fans have been following the Admirals, they're off to a really great start. They lost their first game, then they went on and won 8 straight, and then they've recently lost one and then won again. So they're off to a fantastic start. They've had 2 great seasons going all the way to the conference finals of the playoffs, and it's been a nice combination of veteran players and then younger players in Milwaukee. And I think this year we're even a little younger. We've got some good players at each position. So pleased that you asked these questions. We've got, Corona and Murray in Milwaukee. The 2 goaltenders have been really stellar so far this year. Corona came in the Askarov trade. And then on defense, we've got lots of good players down there. Delgado, who's been called up this year. Kevin Graval, who our group has seen in the past, has come up and played games for us. We've got Willsby down there, who's having another really good year. I think he's deserving of a call-up, hopefully in the near future for him. Jake Livingstone's been good. We've had a nice group. And then Nick Blankenberg, who we got as a free agent, he's already had time in the NHL. He had a really good camp for us. We've got several good defensemen, I think, that could be helpful to our group. And then at the forward position, we have a lot of nice, bright young stars down there. I think we've got Schaefer, who's had a really good second year with our group. Weisblatt, who you saw had a good training camp with us. There's a lot of guys down there. Vinny Hinostroza, who actually he's leading the AHL in production right now in goal scoring. He's been a good option. Then I saw Milwaukee and Chicago when we were the night before when the Predators played the Blackhawks, and Joachim Kimmel had a hat trick in that game. So we've got lots of young guys. It's definitely a group to be very excited about.
Brian Poyle with us on the program. I got to ask about Brady Shea, because I remember Brady Shea a couple years ago in that playoff series against Carolina, and he was a legitimate top-paired defenseman. I mean, he was big, he was fast, he can play in his own end, he can play in the offensive zone. I had no problem when he was signed. I had no problem with the contract. I got it. I thought, okay, he and Yossi are going to be a top pair, or you're going to have Yossi with one guy and then Shea with another guy, kind of spread out the wealth. And Brady Shea is not playing well enough. And last night, again, he has the turnover that ends up, in the back of the net, cost you the game. I'm trying to figure out, Roman Yossi struggled a little bit last year at the beginning of the year, and Barry kept saying, hey, he's adjusting to the system, etc. Brian, what's up with Brady Shea?
Yep. Good questions again, Jared. And it's funny you remembered the part about Roman, because last time I was on your show was about a year ago at this time, and you were asking me the same questions about Roman Yossi with under Andrew Burnett. I definitely do think that there is something to things systematically. I think Carolina played and I know you've watched them play and you saw them play in the COVID playoffs versus us. They play a very high pressure system and man on man in their own D zone. So I think there is an adjustment period for any defenseman or forward for that matter playing in that system and going into a different system that doesn't play man on man. So there's certainly that piece of it. And then there's also, you've seen Bruno's had a couple different D pairs with him, mostly with Roman Josi, and Roman plays a very strong game as well. And it just takes time to adjust to those guys. I'd be lying to you if I wish it had happened faster. I wish we had gelled sooner, but I could say that about our whole team, not just Brady Shea. I think Brady had actually had a pretty good game last night. Of course, he lost an edge there and fell in overtime, which led to the goal. But he's got to play a little bit better. So do all the players on our team. We're going to need all these guys, but we believe in Brady. We believe in all these guys. They're good quality people who we think can get us into a good spot. We gotta keep going.
You know, I was talking to Barry a couple weeks ago about just the way hockey is. And you know this as well as anybody, that it is a quick trigger sport, especially when a team has high expectations and it doesn't work out. And I mean, I think Edmonton, who you're going to play, coming up on Thursday night, last year, they made a very quick change behind the bench. I was actually a little surprised how quickly they did. And I was also a little surprised that they moved on from Kenny Holland after they got to Game 7 of the Cup final. I'm not sure exactly what more they could have wanted out of that, but that's okay. I do wonder on the Andrew Burnett front. Barry Trotz is a former coach. He worked for your dad. When your dad was general manager, he did not pull the trigger on a coach the way everybody else in the league would. Where is the team right now on Andrew Burnett and on where this operation sits right now, given that this is a sport that is not fair to coaches?
I think Andrew Burnett's in a good spot with our group in terms of his relationship with Barry and our management group. We believe in these guys very much. I mean, I think what's unique and special about Andrew, and you've probably heard this before, is he's almost held every position in hockey you could have. He's been on management side. He's been a former player. He's been a coach. He's been in player development. He's had all those different sides of him. So, I mean, he's a very unique guy in the fact that there's not much he can't talk about or see in hockey. And I think his coaching staff is also excellent. They're all former NHL players with a ton of experience. I like our group a lot. I like our coach a lot. I think you can't, anytime you're going through a time like this where the expectations are a little bit higher and you're wanting to do more, it's never going to be just one group. It's not just management. It's not just coaches or players. It's all of us working together to go in the direction we want to go. So I've been proud of our group. We need more out of them. We need more out of everybody to get to where we want to go. But I think we've got the group that can do it.
Last one for you. Does he know, how behind him Barry is, you are, the organization is, that would allow him to kind of do his job as a coach more than worry about protecting his job as a coach?
I can't speak for Andrew and how he feels about things, but in my time in dealing with him, one of the things I always find impressive about Andrew is he doesn't ever get too high or too low. And he always has really good perspective because he always can mention things where he would talk about himself and say, I remember when I was in this position, what I did as a player and what I did when I was helping work for this guy or that guy in player development. So he just has a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. So he doesn't strike me as somebody that, of course he cares. Of course we all want to do well. We live in a job, in a profession where everything's right in front of you every day. He wants to perform well. He cares so much about our team, but I don't believe he's worrying about those type of things. I think he's really focused on our group and working to help improve this team we currently have and make some small, subtle changes to our group to get us going in the right direction.
Brian Poyle, great stuff. And Brian, I appreciate it. And again, congratulations to the Predators. Congratulations to your family. And most importantly, congratulations to your dad, because he absolutely belongs in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and send him my best as well.
Thank you, Jared. I appreciate it. And any of the fans, if you guys are coming on a road trip to see the Predators play Toronto there in December, you should stop by the Hall of Fame. It's a great, great time.
Bingo. There you go. Brian Poyle, presented by Port Vu. Brian, thank you, sir. Brian Poyle joining us on the program. And let me say this about the Hockey Hall of Fame. If my Toronto native girlfriend and I were not having a child when the Predators are up there in Toronto, I would absolutely be there. That is the one trip that I want to go on, is I want to go watch the Predators play in Toronto. All right, 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in here on the program, 615-737-1025. You know what? I got a couple reaction thoughts that I want to get to, and then we're back to the Titans. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
Nyquist, Shea, and Marchessault out there. Shea stumbles, lost the puck. Sam Girard on a breakaway in overtime, and he scores to win it for the Avs. Brady Shea lost the puck, took a penalty, and the former Preds Sam Girard wins it for Colorado with 2:13 left in overtime. Avs 3, Preds 2.
What a great call by Max. Damn. And what was such a bad screw up by Brady Shea. So we just had Brian Poyle on the show. I asked about, the coach, and he said, hey, no, we're behind Andrew Burnett. The management's behind Andrew Burnett. We're behind Andrew Burnett. We're not firing the coach, which is something I agree with. Let me say this about last night's game in the state of the Predators. If you look at the standings right now, the Predators are in last place in the NHL. They're in last place in the division. They're in last place in the conference. They're in last place in the NHL. That can only go on for so long. I mean, again, I think we are all grown-ups here. We know that. That being said, last night's game was the kind of game that in a typical November, if the Predators had started the season at 2-2-1 instead of 0-5, then I can live with last night. And I can say, hey, they went toe-to-toe with Colorado. They made some mistakes. They also, some buttes. I mean, the Yossi pass to Sissons last night for a goal was incredible. Saros was phenomenal in net. I mean, look, the Forsberg had a shot at, an opportunity, didn't bury it. I didn't like the Rantanen goal that they had there, that went through the 5-hole of Saros, but I thought Saros was excellent last night. If this were a normal year, normal November, then I could just shrug it off and say, hey, you got a point, move on. I mean, I don't know if you can do that, given the hole that they dug for themselves by starting off 0-5. And it's like I said to Brian Poyle. I said, look, we can sit here and say, hey, this team, we've got playoff feel, or we believe that they can pull themselves out of it. But it's like every week there's some kind of new historical statistic that says teams that are in the state the Predators are in make the playoffs 3% of the time. And I'm supposed to believe it's going to be the 3%? I mean, last night they played their tushies off, and Brady Shea blew it for everybody at the end of the game by, again, I mean, just a horrendous turnover. And his play is just it's inexcusable. What happened, but that turnover in overtime last night, he's adjusting to the system. That's fine. Then don't put him on the ice in overtime. Because, right now, he's a train wreck. Somebody in the YouTube chat said, didn't keep the same energy you have for the Titans for the Predators. And let me say this. That's because I don't think the Predators should be firing anybody right now. I don't think Andrew Burnett should be fired. I don't think Barry Trotz should be fired. I don't think anybody should be fired. In fact, the move they made with Dante Fabro the other day, I actually like that move. But this can only go on for so long. Until at some point, this is not good enough. And I think it's this road trip. And I think, again, if we're being fair, they probably need to go win the next 4. They probably need to sweep the rest of the road trip. And that would get them into at least some sort of possibility that they could make the play.
They just need to split. They're not going to sweep all 4.
I'm sorry, but I don't think a split's good enough. When it's like, again, not to compare everything to the election night, but when they have the big boards up there and they're like, and you see right here, they're getting 67% of the vote. And if you go back 4 years, they got 68% of the vote. And that little difference is like the difference across the country, extrapolated out of that one county, and then there's all the other counties that are the same, and it's all the this and it's all the that. That's what I think we're looking at here, which is, again, if you don't get the 8 points that this road trip has, I don't know if you can get out of this. I really don't. And that's why I said if I'm being fair, because if I'm, trying to lower, it's more likely that they split than it is that they win 4. I don't know if that gets you back to where you need to be. I think at some point they're going to have to win about 4 or 5 in a row. And it's got to come sooner rather than later. So, again, like last night, if this was a normal November, last night would have been something to build off of. Instead, it's a point they left out there and a huge blunder by Brady Shea. And a great call, by the way, by Max Hers on the broadcast. Congratulations, Max. Also, Ian, the Avalanche broadcast last night, I should have cut this because it was hilarious. Colton Sissons scored. Yossi delivers a beautiful pass to Sissons, who goes right around Gorgiev and puts it in there. And the Avalanche broadcast, they were like, it's Yossi up top, delivers it down to Sissons. Sissons puts it into the net. And Colton Sissons, who never scores against anybody else, but always scores against the Avalanche, has put the Predators back on the board. And it is his second goal of the season and his second goal against the Avalanche. And I did laugh at that. It's like, damn, to think about it like that, like throw him under the bus as he scores. Like, hey, he doesn't score against anybody else. He scores against us. 615-737-1025. Everybody that is in support of Rand Carthon and the Titans. Because, again, I don't think Barry Trotz should be fired. I don't think Andrew Burnett should be fired. I do think Rand Carthon has got to go. And I keep asking for reasons to believe. Like things they've done that justify us continuing on this path with the Titans. And everything I hear, I'm not sure I really like. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
What does Amy Adams Strunk want Titans fans to know at this time?
I have high expectations, and I'll never apologize for that. And these fans deserve a great team, and they deserve a championship brought to the city. And that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm prepared to make the hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner. This team has a bright future. We have Rand. We have a promising young quarterback. I mean, the sky's the limit. We've got cap space. We've got a great draft position. Things are bright for the Titans. I'm really very, very optimistic. And I'd like to thank the fans for hanging with us this year. Our season was unacceptable, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there sooner rather than later.
I don't know about that, Amy. She said that in January of this year, and as of November, it's not looking very good. So, again, that was the mindset coming into the year. We've got Rand. Yeah. We've got this young quarterback. Yeah. We got this cap space, even though the cap's fake. Yeah. You're actually worse today than you were then. When you had Derrick Henry, when you had Ryan Tannehill, when you actually had won some games. You just beating the crap out of Jacksonville. And what you did was you took the player that cost them the game, Calvin Ridley, dropped the pass, hit him right in the hands, and you put him on your team. So, that takes me to this. We ran a poll. Who should the Titans fire for this season? And by the way, Ian, I ask you this question as well. Who should the Titans fire for this season? And these are your options. Everybody. Nobody. The GM, not the coach. Or the coach and not the GM. Ian, would you like to take a vote in the poll?
Is there no situation like, what if they get rid of Carthon but keep Brinker? Does that do anything? Or what if?
Well, I'm lumping them together because, again, at that point you're going to let Brinker make your decisions, and I don't. What has he done to earn that? Over, say, Rick Spielman, Thomas Dimitrov, again, somebody that actually knows football.
I mean, I don't know.
By the way, what you're suggesting is probably what's going to happen, if I had to guess.
Yeah, you think so? I don't know. It's just interesting, the whole situation between Brinker and Carthon and what they do. Is it like a package deal, the two of them? I don't know that. But it's just something I've kind of been thinking about. If I had to choose, I would probably fire nobody.
Okay, so you would join 29% of the people. 39% of the people say fire everybody.
And that includes 29%, the coach?
That includes coach. 29% says nobody. 25% says the GM, but not the coach. And 7% says the coach, but not the GM.
So when you say the GM, but not the coach, you mean Carthon and Brinker?
I mean, I think, we're kind of dumbing it down so that it doesn't get super into the weeds.
Sure, I'm just trying to clarify.
Yes. So, again, you said that it's kind of an interesting dynamic between Carthon and Brinker. I would say it's a Fakakta dynamic between the two. And, again, to me, the way I view it is, if I'm getting rid of Rand Carthon, I'm getting rid of Chad Brinker too. Because I am bringing in a new chief executive of the football team to run the football team. Now, for me, it would be a little bit more complicated than this simply because I would say, I would hire the next general manager. And I'd bring in guys who have experience. I'd interview Pete Carroll. I'd interview Bill Belichick. I'd interview Rick Spielman, Thomas Dimitrov, Mark Dominic, Doug Whaley. I'd interview all these guys. I'd sit down with them. And then I'd hire who I like the best. Chase and I were actually talking about this off the air today. I said, I don't think I could, if I owned this team, I don't think I could go to that person and say, hey, do you think there's a way Callahan could be your coach? Because the last thing I want to do is what the Titans have done, which is force a coach on a GM. If I'm hiring one of these experienced football guys, he doesn't necessarily need an experienced coach. He might do it, but he doesn't necessarily need it. But I'd be saying, do you think there's something there to work with Callahan? And these guys might say yes. but they have to make the choice on Callahan. I mean, I would love it if Rick Spielman would say, oh, no, I think there's something there with Callahan. Would love it. But at the same time, I'm not going to even give the impression that I want you to keep this coach for me. I want you to hire your own coach. So I technically would go into the everybody category, though. I would just love it if a new guy could come in and find a way to work with Brian Callahan. But if you're keeping score at home, again, 39% was everybody. 64% picked an option that involved firing Rand, and 46% picked an option that involved firing Brian Callahan. 29% said nobody. So, again, about a third of the fan base still says, no, we're right on course. Today I said, okay, what is the reasoning for, what good has Rand Carthon, and if you want to throw Chad Brinker into this, you can. What good have Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker? What's good? The excuses for not firing them are things like, well, you look so stupid if you fire the general manager after you fired a general manager 2 years ago. No, I think most people understand, hey, 2 years, worst team in the league, you're 32nd in the Pro Football Talk rankings, maybe you need to change. I think they'll understand that one. I think they'll understand that one more than when you fired your general manager at 7-5 and in first place after winning the division 2 years in a row. I think they'll understand it more than when you fired Mike Vrabel last year, a former coach of the year. So they need more time is not an argument as far as I'm concerned. And I opened up the phone lines earlier today and I said, somebody call in. You tell me what they've done that is good. What have they done that is still good? And Titans and Truth Chris, who I love with all my heart, Titans and Truth Chris called in and he said, well, the left side of the line. The rookie left tackle, who, again, I think it's, it's heading in the right direction over there, gave up 2 sacks on Sunday. That's the best we got. The left guard stinks. You took him 11th, a guard. He's actually, listening to
He doesn't stink. He's average.
He can't pass protect. And if you can't pass protect, you're a fullback. I mean, a guard, you got to pass protect. I would tell you right now, if it was 3rd and 13 and there was a blitz coming and I had a choice at left guard between Brunskill or Skoronski, I would put Brunskill in there. Now, they both have to play because Brunskill has worked his way out of the doghouse because Cushenberry got hurt, and even Cushenberry wasn't that good. But that's all Titans and Truth Chris had for me. That's not good enough. Through 2 years. The second thing is a lot of people are starting to argue that Rand Carthon didn't draft Will Levis, that they need to pick their own quarterback. And I just cannot get on board with how stupid that is, especially when I'm looking at the Chicago Bears, who went 7-10 last year in year 2 for Matt Eberflus. But because the Chicago Bears, it is the Chicago Bear way just to not fire coaches. They do not want to fire the head coach. They give everybody the last shred of opportunity in Chicago. It's the McCaskey way. They're old. This is what they do. These are the same people that supposedly, announced Dave McGinnis as the head coach before he had agreed to do it. And I believe there's a story that they make the head coach in Chicago. I think I heard this on the radio one time, that apparently in Chicago, they make you do a mock press conference before they hire you. And apparently Russ Grimm was set to be hired as the head coach of the Bears. And they did not like what they heard in that mock press conference. And they decided not to hire him. And that's Chicago. And in Chicago, they went 7-10 last year. And they knew they had the number 1 pick thanks to Carolina. And Chicago went out and said, we're going to keep Matt Eberflus, a defensive coach who's already on the hot seat. We're going to keep him. Well, when you do that, you can't get any good offensive coordinator candidates because you might get fired within a year. And again, a guy like Ben Johnson is not leaving Detroit to go to Chicago to be the offensive coordinator. He's leaving to go be the head coach. So where does Chicago find themselves now 8 games in? Oh, yeah, they just fired the OC and the head coach is on the hot seat. And the head coach is doing a radio hit on a radio station and they're making fun of him for his phone. Like the quality of his phone. Because the Chicago Bears are a moronic organization. And that's the problem here. Is they have no idea what they're doing. We can all laugh at them every time something like this blows up in their face, and we move on with our lives because it's not our problem, it's the Bears. But if you operate under the, well, they haven't had enough time and they need to get to draft their own quarterback, I can tell you right now, this time next year, when you're losing with a young quarterback, this time next year, you won't be making the argument that they don't have enough time. Nobody's making the argument that Matt Eberflus in Chicago hasn't had enough time. Now people are like, fire his ass. Boy, that's going to be great. You've just fired the OC. Caleb's going to have to learn anew. Now put yourself in the Titan shoes. You decide not to fire these guys. They enter next year on a blazing hot seat. They draft Shedeur Sanders with the 3rd pick. Shedeur doesn't win right away because, again, traditionally, rookie quarterbacks do not win right away. Now they're all getting fired. Now a new GM comes in and a new coach comes in, and they didn't draft Shedeur Sanders, or they didn't draft Cam Ward, or they didn't. You see what I'm saying? So, again, I just need something from somebody. You tell me, what have they done that justifies keeping them past this year? Have they drafted particularly well? No. Since Rand Carthon became the general manager, they've had 3 top 100 picks. What have they gotten out of that? A left tackle. Okay. A left guard who, again, is not a great pass protector. A quarterback who looks like a bust. And a running back who doesn't start. Oh, and a DT that doesn't hit the quarterback, sack the quarterback, pressure the quarterback, any of those things. Yay. Real foundational pieces there. A run-stuffing DT. Seriously? They spent $230 million. What have they got? A wide receiver who's 54th in the league in catches and doesn't catch the ball. Corners that aren't healthy enough to play. And a running back who's good, but not as good as the running back that they let leave. So what good have they done?
Let leave or wanted to leave?
Well, again, Derrick Henry was approached during the year about being traded.
Wanted to win.
And once you do that,
Go
there's
somewhere
probably
with a
no
chance
coming
to
back.
to win a ring.
Right, but he said that after he said they're going in a different direction. Remember, Derrick Henry went on Bussin' with the Boys, and he had just had his exit meeting with Rand Carthon. And Derrick Henry said, in that Bussin' with the Boys interview, he says, it sounds like the Titans are going in a different direction, and that's okay. And I'd like to go somewhere where I can win a ring. I'm telling you, once they told him, and they made it abundantly clear that they didn't want him back. They tried to trade him, and the owner said no. Once he felt like they're going in a different direction, that's fine. I'll go in a different direction too. Had they gone to Derrick like they should have at that time and said, hey, we want to build this around you. If they had done that, maybe Derrick would have wanted to stay. But most people, when you say, you know, I'm thinking about breaking up with you, most people are like, well, if you don't want me, I'll start thinking in my head about alternatives. And so, again, the Titans let a running back leave, replaced him with another running back who's not as good as the running back they let leave. So what good have they done? And again, if you want to go with what Chris said and say they got a left tackle, way to go. Because Rustin Webster did the same thing too. Should we give him more time? Ken Wisenhunt more time? Or was it time to get in real football people? 615-737-1025. Here's 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company. 102.5, 106 for the game.
Coach, in your press conference today, you received almost 10 separate questions about Will Levis. What were some of the most important things that you took from his performance against the Chargers?
Yeah, the first things first, no turnovers. That's a we have, I don't know how many games straight we've thrown an interception between him and Mason, but to have no turnovers from the quarterback position was a very positive step in the right direction. I thought Will played it efficient. He completed the ball, but he didn't do. Best way to say this would be he played efficient, but he also was aggressive in some of the throws that he made. And those some tight window throws. They were accurate. He played with some poise and some calmness to his game. Certainly things we got to correct. I think there's a couple opportunities to get rid of the ball a little sooner on some of those plays, particularly some of the 3rd and long plays that you're just demoralizingly taking a sack on 3rd and 20. And it's like, just give us a chance, put the ball in the fairway and let us see what happens after that. And maybe we get to a point where we can go for it. Or maybe we make a guy miss and get a first down as opposed to holding on to it, trying to wait for something to develop on a long yardage situation. But yeah, I was encouraged. I thought I saw growth. I saw maturity. I saw a lot of the things I was hoping to see from his performance.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan. Let's hit some phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. George has been waiting patiently and is up next on our program. George, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. So thanks for having me on the phone. And, I'm driving home and I'm listening to you going, God, there's got to be something Rand Carthon's done that's good. And to be honest with you, I'm not a Titans fan, but I do listen, I do watch, and I really struggled to find something. But the thing I got for you, and I'm reaching a little bit, but when you build a team, I've always learned or been told or heard, you build it from the inside out, right? So he's spending his early round draft picks in the last 2 years on the offensive and defensive line. So I think that's a good thing. However, before you tell me left guard, I agree with you. And the thing that scares me about Ryan Carthon is he's not smart enough, it doesn't seem, to say, hey, I shouldn't draft a guard with the 11th or 13th pick. Let me maximize my draft capital, trade back, get Skoronski or his equivalent with a 2nd round pick, and pick up something extra. But to answer your question, I do think he's building from the inside out. That's all I got, man. See you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for the call, George. It's hard for me to think that you're building from the inside out when you don't have a quarterback. And again, think about when Floyd took over the Titans. The Oilers at the time. In 94, they were going to go with Cody Carlson as the quarterback, kind of in a similar thing. So they drafted Henry Ford. They had a low first-round draft choice because they had made the playoffs and hosted a home playoff game, and the salary cap came in. And I don't know if the cap was real then or if the Bud Adams cap was real. I don't know. But at that point in time, they tore the team down and they didn't have a high first-round pick. The next year, they have a high first-round pick. They draft Steve McNair. The next year, they draft Eddie George. To me, that's how you build a team, not with a guard. That's it for us. We're out of here. Preds Insiders. Boy, tough one for the Preds last night. And you can't have moral victories when you started the way they started. That's next. Stillman & Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.